Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome once again to another Wednesday night here on the Sportz Krib. A lot of things going on, especially with the college football playoffs. I'm sure everyone has something to contribute to this conversation. Jeffrey Fan will talk about it a little bit later on, I'm sure, considering he's the man from the ACC. Um, Don says he's traveling, but he'll try to get here as soon as we can. But in the meantime, we have our regulars here. Oh, let's get the commercials out of the way. As you can see on the bottom there, you can subscribe and donate by Cash App, $JEK3. And all proceeds go to helping us to promote the show. So, with that being said, let's introduce Dave and Reggie. How are you guys doing this evening?
Very good, man. Very good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I
Doing
see Reggie.
okay.
Uh, while Dave and I are sporting our Steeler gear, I see Reggie is very festive there with his Atlanta gear.
It's actually Alabama gear. Actually, it's my
Alabama,
A right
okay.
there.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they're
All
very
right.
similar A's. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I would take either one. But on this fine day, it's Alabama.
On this fine day is Alabama. I wonder why. I wonder why. Okay. Well, I tell you, while we're waiting for some of the other guys to get in here, Dave, how have things been this week? I know you went to the game last week. Are you planning on going up this weekend?
Yeah, I'm in my hotel room and managed to suffer through Sunday's game. I mean, the Steelers
After
are
hours,
humiliated,
huh?
but I'm going back for more. Going back for more Thursday night. Hopefully, a different
All
result.
right. Hopefully a different result, as you said. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for some of the guys to get here, Dave, why don't we go to Sue's Corner?
Okay, so actually, she touches on a talking point that's included in your agenda, but she hopes you're okay with that. And this is what Sue had to say. This weekend is the Heisman Trophy presentation. The leading contenders are LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels, Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., Oregon quarterback Bo Nix, and Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr. It seems most likely that Penix or Daniels will come home with the prize. Growing up, hearing about the Heisman Trophy seemed like the greatest achievement you could ever hope for in football as an individual. But how relevant is it really now? 78 players have gotten the Heisman. 15 have never played in the NFL, and 15 have never been drafted. 20, however, were number one draft picks. You did see success in quarterbacks Jim Plunkett and Roger Staubach, who won multiple Super Bowls, along with several running backs like Archie Griffin. But you also saw great disappointment in Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, and due to bad management and injuries, RG3, among others who couldn't successfully make the transition. The best stats come from winners who were running backs. A Heisman winner has led the NFL in rushing yards 16 times. I
Wow.
didn't know that. Winning the Heisman is akin to winning any sort of recognition that involves a, quote, election, unquote. It's not only just based upon your skill set, but also involves a campaign to ensure votes. There are 928 electors, 870 college football media members, 57 living Heisman winners, and one overall fan vote. It will be interesting to see who and how this year's winner fares. And that's Sue's Corner.
Interesting question.
Well, we are, like she said, we are going to cover that, so we'll see. But I thought, we get a couple of other sports, at least some representation from some other sports. And I know everyone here talks about baseball. And so I thought I would throw in the topic this week about the Hall of Fame celebrating the East West Negro League All Star Game, a tribute to it. And it's going to be on Memorial Day. And the captains, I see Bill is here just in time. Well, I didn't know you were
With
coming with
escort.
sirens. Well,
Coming in with an escort.
so, as I was saying, the game is Memorial Day. The captains are Ken Griffey Jr. and uh, is it Cece, I believe?
Sabathia?
Sabathia?
Yes.
That's interesting too.
Let me
Sabathia, huh?
let me make sure I have the okay. Let's get this up here. Okay. Yeah, the captains are the captains are Ken Griffey Jr. and Ozzie Smith. They will
Oh,
coach and manage the squads. The captains are CC Sabathia and Chris Young. They will be the captains, not the managers. But I was wondering, perhaps you had a chance to go and look at some of the representation, some of the people that will be represented there. And I was wondering, what were your thoughts on this tribute to the Negro East West All Star Game? Reggie, I'm going to start with you.
I think it's about time. I mean, any representation, any kind of representation of the Negro Leagues is a pivotal part, especially in African Americans. But I think in sports lexicon in general, when you look at a lot of those guys that didn't get the recognition and we're kind of trying to give it to them now. I was happy. I think that Buck O'Neil. I don't know if Buck O'Neil was alive when he went in, or he was one of the last guys that was hanging on from those days. But I think any kind of light that can be shown on the Negro Leagues is a good one, in my opinion.
Dave.
Yeah, they played a series of the games back in the 1930s, and I know that there were some African American papers like the Pittsburgh
Courier.
Courier.
and the Chicago Defender, and which actually I believe both of those papers. I know the Pittsburgh Courier actually had national distribution.
Yep.
And so,
both of them did through the sleeping car porters.
Right. So, I think it's an important thing that it's a part of the past that has to be kept in the forefront, I think, because literally you had to have two separate leagues. They created their own all-star game, which was held, I think, at the end of the season as opposed to the mid-season. But I think it's a great tribute. And I'm glad that we're keeping our eyes focused on what's a big part of not only sports history but actually our nation's history.
Bill, we only have 3 hours, but your thoughts.
So I will keep it short. I've always believed, and I've said this for years, that as part of the quote unquote RBI program, which was supposed to restore baseball in the inner cities, they should set up, in essence, their own little mini Negro leagues, in that they would pick a certain number of cities. And of course, ideally cities that were at one point represented by some of the great Negro League franchises. And, the Clowns in Indianapolis, the Black Barons in Birmingham, the Monarchs in Kansas City, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and have a feeder program, much like the academies that they have in places like San Pedro de Macorís in the Dominican Republic and Venezuela, Maracaibo in Venezuela and other places, where you would, not all those kids are going to make it to the major leagues or even make it to the minor leagues. But if you have these academies that teach people baseball, but also life skills and help them academically, then you might get people that might become general managers or people that might become strength and conditioning coaches. But as part of it, yes, there should be these games. But to me, that should be like the tip of the iceberg. And there should be a whole iceberg underneath it. If they were serious, if they're truly serious about reviving baseball in the inner cities, they should have boots on the ground where a lot of these great, especially some of the great older players, could act as mentors to young people, because I don't want to get too deep into it, but we have overrepresentation of young Black Americans in certain sports. And frankly, we've saturated some of those sports to the point there's really no more room. While we've been trickling out of baseball consistently for now over 40 years, like the number each decade, it peaked in the mid 70s, and each decade since then, the percentage of American-born Black people that play baseball at every level, from little league to the majors, has gone a little bit down each decade since. And we hear all the the right things being said. Everyone says all the right things, but the right thing hasn't been done, or at least not done enough to the point that they're turning this thing around. So yes, I'd love to see exhibitions. Yes, I'd love to see traveling things for people to see and things at the Hall of Fame and all that kind of stuff. But unless and until there is a long-term and large-scale commitment to build not just interest in the game, but career paths besides just playing career paths into various parts of baseball, from operations to logistics and promotions and marketing, and I mean all of it, right? All the different things that people can do in baseball. There should be a feeder system being established all across America, hitting these places where young Black people can be found. And if they were serious, that's what would be happening. Those are my thoughts.
Well, as Reggie said, and you so eloquently put it, it's good to have the recognition. It took a long time to get it, and I can't, I don't want to be one of those that says that any recognition is a good recognition, because I think this is something that is overdue, and I think it's worth more than the average cliches. Speaking of that, there were some moves that were made this week, and maybe a couple of them surprised you, and maybe you didn't. They didn't, but on a scale of 1 to 10, Dave, were you surprised when the manager said that the Angels were not going to move Mike Trout?
I'll have to give that a 5.
So it really didn't. You're kind of neutral on it. It didn't really.
Yeah.
Reggie, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm going to go one lower. I'm going to give it a 4, which I believe the result of Mike Trout being an Angel has been. It hasn't been what they envisioned it, I don't think, when they first, and I don't really put this on Mike Trout more so than the organization. I think sometimes you look past in the history of certain organizations, and I think we do it same thing in basketball with OKC. When you see they had at one point when they had Harden, Westbrook, and Durant, and you think like, man, those what could have been, And I think you've seen the same thing with Ohtani and Trout here. You're gonna look back one day, and you can look at the talent that was on this roster and say, man, like they at least with OKC they went to the finals. At least they that's way more. The Angels haven't sniffed the finals, so it's kind of like, or or I would say they haven't had the amount of success that one thought they would have when they first got Mike Trout. So is it a surprise they're keeping him? No, but I don't really know what will change here, guys. I mean, I feel like they're going to have the same results. And until something changes, I'm not really sure. I'm gonna go 4. I'm gonna go 1 less than Dave there.
Bill,
Well,
scale of 1 to 10.
I guess if we're doing this, I guess I'll keep the downward trend. Why not? I'll go 3. So, but what's the best way? Everyone, what's the best way to drive up the price of something? Announce you are not going to sell it. That's the best way to drive up the price of anything, right? Someone says, that's a nice car. Oh, I'm not going to sell it, right? Anytime you want to drive up the price of something, tell them, I have no interest in selling. I would never sell that. It's been in my family for generations. I've had Mike Trout in my family for generations. I don't believe that they won't at some point move Mike Trout. I do believe that no one has blown their doors off with the offer yet that it'll take to get it done. But as we just pointed out, unlike the OKC, the old school OKC franchise that, was the next year's champions, at one point, right? They haven't even threatened. They haven't even looked like a team that's going to win anything, right? Except on paper. But when they actually get out there onto the sod, I mean, it's cool that they have all these, oh, wow, first ballot Hall of Famers. How fun is that? But, I mean, they haven't even been – I mean, I could think like the Twins – you know what I mean? There's teams I could think of that you would not associate with, you know what I mean? Like who have come closer, who have been more in the running, have competed more consistently. Look at what the Orioles just did. There's no first ballot Hall of Famers anywhere on their roster. So it's just this cool collection of talent. We'll look back and think, oh, what a cool collection of talent that was. Wow, wasn't it cool? They had like at one point, the best 5-tool player, or at least some people saw the best 5-tool player in the game, at least for a little while. And remember, they had the best, 2-tool player anybody's ever seen, at least since George Herman Ruth. Wow, wasn't that cool? Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, give me a beer. What are we supposed to like? I can't get too nostalgic about this oddity but there was nothing more to it. It was just a thing to talk about.
Well, let's try another one out here, Bill. Scale of 1 to 10. How surprised are you that Mookie Betts will not be in the Dodgers outfield next season? He will strictly be relegated to second base.
I mean, I don't know, 3.5. These are things that blow me away. Exactly. They have a wealth of people that they can play in the outfield, obviously. And Mookie Betts is a pretty darn good outfielder. So he's not like he stinks it up out there, but they've got better options apparently. And they felt like they didn't have a better option at second base. So, I'm not exactly, that's not one of those things where I'm hair stand on end, I'm not joy buzzer shocked. I don't know what to say. It's 3.5.
Reggie.
Go about the same. Maybe I'll stick to my 4 here. Just go 4 across the board here because this is, is there really anything? The biggest surprise is if Mookie Betts is not on the team. Who cares where he plays at? It is as long as he is on the team, that would be the shocker, at least for me. If they're like, hey, we decide to move on from Mookie Betts, I'm going to wonder what are you doing? But this doesn't really surprise me a ton, to be honest with you. Like Bill just said, they clearly feel like they have better options in the outfield, and they're going to exercise the options, and Mookie will still be out there being Mookie.
Dave.
Well, I'm a little more. I'm actually like a 7, I guess. It's just a transition, and I guess his manager is saying he's going to be the everyday second baseman.
Yeah,
and I guess maybe that's what has me surprised. You're having an outfielder moving to the infield, and I see those as different skill sets, and so I guess that's more where my surprise is. You want to keep the guy, and as Bill and Reggie are saying, is if you got a bunch of outfielders and you don't got room for him, and you got a needed second base, and he's not going to be a detriment, fielding. Okay, but I'm still a little bit surprised. It's just a transition of the positions going from the outfield to an everyday second baseman.
Okay. Reggie, the Red Sox trade Alex Verdungo to the Yankees. I mean, to me, it's a surprise that the Red Sox trade anything to the Yankees, but I think they got 3 pitchers in minor league pitchers in return. But how surprised are you that there's a trade between the Red Sox and the Yankees, Reggie?
Well, you just took my spiel there, James. I'm a 10. I'm surprised there's not PTSD with trades between these guys here. I mean, it's crazy that they're trading. Period. It's kind of like 2 people even talking. You're like, it's crazy that you guys even having each other's phone numbers at this point. That y'all actually able to sit down and have some kind of conversation is crazy to me. So I'm going to go pretty surprised that there's any trades between these 2 teams.
Dave.
Well, I guess it just comes down to, the issues, the disciplinary issues with them. And I guess one team has had enough, and are they going to be able to send him to a team that's willing to use his talent, despite the issues that he has? So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of either team, but so I'll give it a 5. But I guess this is the challenge for general managers. Is, hey, you want to, if you have somebody that you see as a detriment to your team, well, you want to package them up as nice as you can to get what you're able to from another team. And that's what it's all about. And it's up for the other team, if they've done their due diligence, is, okay, does he bring us what we need? So that's where I stand on that.
Well, Bill, let's see. Dave gives it a 5. Me and Reggie give it a 10. Where are you at in this?
I guess I'm right in the middle. I guess I'll call it a 7.5. As was mentioned, the Red Sox have occasionally touched this hot stove and been burned by it before. We already talked about, of course, George Sherman Ruth. The fact is that people always talk about, oh, I can't believe so-and-so made a trade with so-and-so. Your job as a general manager is to do what you can to serve the needs of your ball club. And while it may be uncomfortable or embarrassing, or, people may snicker and point at you or whatever, if you make certain deals with certain teams, you have to get over it, right? Your job is to do what you can to make your team the best team it can be. And if that means making a trade with literally Satan, if the trade's a favorable one, you still may have to make it. So I am not shocked. I would just say a little surprised, simply because of the history. But you do what you do. Like, it's your job. If you're a general manager, you say, here's my roster. Here's what we have coming in. Here's our assets, in essence. And is it possible to improve? If you can look any place in your organization and say, it's possible to improve here, or there's something we want or something we don't want, right? And we can either get the thing we want or get rid of the thing we don't want, then we do it. I mean, that's what it means to be a general manager of a franchise.
Bill, Stephen A. Blast all the secrecy around Ohtani's free agency. And I have to admit, even though I'm not a big fan of Stephen A's, I do understand where he's coming from with this. What's your thoughts on all of this kind of cloak and dagger stuff going on around Ohtani and where he's going to end up?
I do not care, but I suppose you'd like me to pretend to care. The fact is that it will happen, right? It will work out. He will either stay or go, and then a team will give him an enormous amount of money. I'm hearing possibly, a total value in the contract that could get maybe possibly north of $600 million. Wow. Teach your kids to switch, hit, and pitch. So if you remember nothing else I say to you tonight, remember, teach your kids to switch, hit, and pitch. I mean, who knows what the number will actually be, but apparently he has a chance to make all of the money ever. And and clearly there'll be a team that will pay him an amount of money that no matter what the number is, we will go, wow, I don't get too swept up in these things about, is it secretive? Do they have a show where Shohei Ohtani sits down with, Stephen A. Smith or sits down with Jeremy Schaap or whoever it is and, talks about how hard a decision it is for him through his interpreter, I guess. He can actually speak and understand a little bit of English, but probably this would be a little too much for him.
He understands 600 million.
Yes, he does. He understands. Once again, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. And that's especially big numbers, big numbers. Like 4 generations worth of Ohtanis will never have to work, ever. But this is going to work. I mean, I'm not trying to be boring or whatever, but some of this stuff, it doesn't move me at all, James. I'm going to admit it doesn't move me at one teeny tiny bit. When it's over, I'll be like, oh, look what happened. But why should I worry about how the process? Do you want to go to the factory and see how the sausage is made? I mean, you may want to, but most don't. And if you do go, you may have a hard time eating sausage afterwards.
What's your thoughts there, Reggie?
I don't feel like Ohtani owes people peeking at his process. He doesn't owe you guys nothing. Like, wait, the audacity of people to feel like maybe they should stop by and run their daily itinerary by them. And this is where we're going to go. Who's this where we're going to go see today? Listen, at the end of the day, we all know it's a few teams that are vying for it. One of the things that came out was that secrecy was a part of the deal. They didn't want anybody talking about it. So guess what? You don't talk about it. If the guy comes to visit you and he wants all blue M&Ms, guess what? He's going to have all blue M&Ms. We don't care what happens behind the scenes. It's going to be the end result at the end of the day. Where does he end up going? We know he is having these visits. And when it gets done, it gets done. I don't feel like these athletes owe anybody a peek into their private life and their decision-making, so to speak.
You agree with that, Dave?
Oh, yeah. Why should Ohtani, why should he have to disclose?
You think the Indians may be coming down with a $600 million guaranteed contract? I mean, seems like
somebody
that's going around in Cleveland.
I tell you, somebody's coming with it.
But why should he have to disclose his private business? And it seems like Stephen A's point is, well, this is for the greater good. This is for the good of baseball. Well, no, Ohtani's job isn't to be in it for the greater good of baseball. His job is to be in the greater good for himself, make as much money. And it's between him and his agent how he does his business. And if they want to be private about it, so be it. That's his business. Now, if he wants to sit down with everybody and say, oh, well, I'm going over here, and then after we visit Cleveland, now we're going to go over to New York or Pittsburgh or wherever, fine. That's his prerogative. But I fully agree with what Reggie said. He's under no obligation, and he shouldn't be pestered about it. I think that this is kind of Stephen A being frustrated because he doesn't have the scoop, in order to be able to tell everybody where he's going at any given moment.
And Stephen A wouldn't get the scoop anyway. Stephen A, no offense, but he's not the guy who's plugged into what's going on in baseball.
Right, he's not the baseball guy for sure.
No. Buster Olney, Jeff Passan. I mean, there's a long list of dudes that would get the scoop well ahead of Stephen A.
Way
Smith.
Before Stephen A.
Way before Stephen A. Smith.
Well, let's.
Well, I mean, he's talking about the greater good. But is he really talking about the greater good, or is he talking about the ability of the journalist to get it, whoever's getting it? And again, to me, it doesn't matter. Ohtani's business is his business, and he should be able to conduct it the way he wants.
Well, Jeffrey should be joining us soon, so I'm going to throw one quick question at you guys with the NBA, and then we'll start talking about the subject that everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah, CFP.
But in the meantime, Jeffrey, this in season tournament that they're having for the NBA. Do you think that this is for the diehard fan, or do you think that this is their attempt to draw new audiences during the NFL season? I mean, come on. I mean, maybe what's your thoughts here, Dave?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
Wrong guy. I mean, I lost interest in the NBA 20 years ago. I've watched a handful of games honestly, and I wasn't even aware that they were doing it. And of course, I will say this: the NBA, all the sports, everybody's been expanding, and in terms of the time of year, there used to be distinct seasons when the different sports would kind of hype their marketing, and then their sport would be in season. Well, more and more they're trying to make it year round, and the NFL has been the most successful, but all the sports are trying to get a greater market share, and so of course the NBA is going to try to do something, but I wasn't even aware of this initiative.
Well, I see. I guess that's one answer right there, right? Reggie, what's your thoughts on this? In tournament. Now I'll have to, be truthful here. I have not watched one game.
I've watched a few games of it.
I've watched some highlights now. After that,
Yeah, I've caught a couple of highlights as well.
The Giannis game, and of course, I'm always interested in what the Nuggets do and the Lakers. But do you think it was as targeted to get new viewers, or do you think this was to keep the diehards while the NFL has what this is? They're expanding. It used to be that 12-game season, 14-game season. Now the NFL is encroaching more and more onto their season.
I think that it's just I think that it serves multiple purposes, guys. I mean, for one, I'm glad they're trying something. I don't knock innovation. I remember back in the day, or I don't remember because I wasn't there, but look at all the things Pete Rozelle was throwing all kinds of stuff at the board to try to get the NFL more interesting to people, whether it was his balloons that he famously liked. There was stuff in the NFL that's been done time and time again to make the game more engaging to people, or try to attract another set of fans. And I feel the same way here with the NBA. It's just a way to make an 82 game season's a long season, guys. And how do we make these first 20 games more interesting? This is a way to make the games more interesting. And I don't think that's just for the fans. I think it's also for the players, something that gets them more engaged in the early season, to have their monetized incentive there for them to actually play in these games instead of sitting out a quarter of the season. And I think that's just another way to try to serve many purposes, get new fans and make the early season games more engaging.
Bill.
I'm sort of between the two. I am not nearly as blissfully unaware, apparently, as David was about the existence of the tournament. And I have not been like on tenterhooks, like trying to get all the information about every single thing that's happened. I do play fantasy basketball, so that gets me a little bit plugged in. And by accident, I meant to play in one league, and by accident, I'm in like 3 different leagues.
Oh, that's a nightmare, by the way. If you're managing those 3 leagues,
oh God,
look at that.
So one's a dynasty, the other 2 are. So I have one's dynasty, one's a keeper, and one's a redraft. But
the injuries, man, goodness, daily.
Well, I love it because my favorite thing is working the waiver wire. That's the only thing that keeps me engaged.
Oh man!
I get up I get up at 3:36 in the morning on Wednesdays to work the waiver wire. And people are wondering, like, how do you keep getting all these players? Because I get up at 3:36 in the morning on waiver Wednesday.
Very nice.
Oh yeah, that's how I do it. Hey, if you want to make an omelet, you have to break eggs. So. I do care just enough to know like who's playing and things like that. But no, it's not riveting. I can't imagine someone who wasn't an NBA fan before be like, oh, now I'm going to watch. as David has just demonstrated, because he didn't know it was happening. So if you are not a person who cares at all about the NBA, this will not only not move the needle, you won't know the needle is moving.
Right. You don't know the needle exists, basically.
You won't know the needle exists. You won't know if it's moving, where it is, if there even is a needle. If you're a person who cares about the NBA, you'll either be excited or disgusted, depending upon if you're a traditionalist or if you're 14 years old. So the hardcore NBA fan will either have a strong reaction in either direction. The casual will maybe check out a game or two if their favorite team is involved. And David won't know what's happening.
So we're where we started, basically.
Probably not. Probably not. But you know where I will know it from? Right here on the Sportz Krib.
There we go. There we go. Somebody knows how to drop a plug.
Well, gentlemen, the man of the evening is here, Mr. Fan. Jeffrey, how are you doing this evening?
Yes.
Doing good.
Well, of course, we couldn't start our discussion until you got here, talking about
the discussion of the hour. Absolutely.
So let's kind of set this up here. First of all, we found out the 4 teams that are playing will be Alabama, Texas, Washington, and Michigan. But there are 3 teams that are undefeated. Seems like somebody missed the cut. So, are you buying the committee's explanation for picking Bama and the Longhorns? And why do you think that FSU didn't make the cut? I'm asking your thoughts, not the committee's thoughts, but why do you think that they didn't make the cut? And do you think that this will be the end of the current committee way of decision making as we know it? Jeffrey, I'm going to let you start off this conversation here.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, it was a curious decision. I think my biggest issue with what they did is the moving goalposts that they had all season long. And I mean, they were even quoted as saying they never used predictive results or predictive looks at the games to make decisions on how they would evaluate them. And that's been my biggest problem, is that's what they did here. They turned it into a Vegas point spread choice on how to select teams, and that's just not the way sports works. It never has. Teams win in different ways. There's example after example of backup quarterbacks, injured players, teams coming through, in those situations, they get better in different ways. And what really, spoke to me about what they did is that they said they were watching the games, but they really weren't watching the games, because even in that ACC championship game, the quarterback for Florida State would not have been the quarterback in the playoff. Brock Glenn was not going to be the quarterback. That was a 3rd string true freshman quarterback. And they won with defense. Tate Rodemacher would have been back for that playoff game, and they had 1.5 data points of football, to evaluate it. I think, you never want to say it in sports, but it just feels like, the fix was in. I don't know how else to say it, that they were going to shoehorn, the teams that they wanted there, rather than the teams that should have been there. That's how I kind of feel it. I mean, they want to say that Florida State wasn't the same team with Jordan Travis, and no one would argue that at all. They were a different team. They were a better defensive team. That team was much better on defense during the last 3-4 weeks of the season than they were with Jordan Travis. You play those same games that they had with Florida and Louisville at the beginning of the year instead of the end of the year, and the point spreads are probably going to be the same. It probably would have been like a 30-21 win over Florida, or a 34-24 type win over Louisville. So they turned it into figure skating. I heard someone say that they turned college football into figure skating, in my opinion, without any rules. Even figure skating has more rules than what the committee did. So I still have yet to really understand it from a rational point of view. So I don't know. I think something else was going on in the background, to be perfectly honest, that they simply couldn't have a playoff, without an SEC team. I think that was in their mind that they were going to do it. They were going to have an SEC team in no matter what.
Well, now let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum here, because we have a gentleman that's wearing
Oh yes.
Alabama.
Oh yes, guys. I've been waiting for
And,
this.
Alabama did beat Georgia, but I kind of spoke to this last week, Reggie, when you weren't here, when I said, and I wasn't really thinking of Alabama and Georgia. I was thinking maybe Washington
Oregon.
and Oregon. But as I did predict, we end up with 7 teams with a 1-loss record. Now, I can understand Ohio State not being in there because Michigan's there. So I can understand not having another Big Ten team in there. I can also understand Alabama being there because of their victory over Georgia. I have a little problem with the Longhorns being there, but Don's not here, and we can talk about that if he comes up. But so Reggie, like I said, I don't really have a problem with Alabama being there. But what did you think about the selection committee and the way that they eliminated an undefeated team with what would, under any other circumstances, maybe I should play the music, would be a bullshit excuse? So your thoughts, Reggie?
I would exclude 2 groups of people from the rant that I'm about to go on for Alabama here. And the groups of people I would exclude are, for one, of the players and the team and the team family. They've done everything they could do. It's not their fault that they were excluded. They won all the games. They did everything they can do. And I would also exclude human beings who genuinely believe that Florida State is better than the teams that got in. If you genuinely believe that Florida State can beat these teams, forget all the rest of the stuff leading up to it. If you genuinely believe that, then I will exclude them from this rant. But to me, it was pretty simple. It's easy. And the numbers that got Alabama in was 5th strength of schedule versus 55th. That's a 50-point difference there. Strength of schedule for Alabama was 5. Florida State strength of schedule was 55. We had to play 5 top 25 teams to Florida State's 3. And this is with Jordan Travis there for most of these games. I do think, guys, to be 100% honest with you, that if Jordan Travis was healthy, I think they're in. I think Florida State's in if Jordan Travis is healthy. But I do think that, for one, the TCU game last year kind of set things back. Nobody wants to see that happen again. And I think that Alabama was just a better team. And being in the SEC, and the way that football works down here especially, is that we love the SEC. And, of course, we think we're the best and all this other stuff. But just thinking that we're best aside, I mean, Alabama's been in, every year of the college football playoffs. I don't think that's just poo-pooing like we're the best. We've legit been there every single year. And our one loss coming to the number 3 team that is also in the playoffs, I don't understand how that would be a disqualifier given everything else that's there. So I don't think this was not a hard decision in my opinion, once Alabama beat the number 1 team. I don't think there was any hard decision about putting them in. Even the Michigan, even the Wolverines, I think they'd rather be playing a Jordan Travis-less Florida State than playing Alabama. And I think that's an indication of who the better team is. I think you put in the best 4 teams. And I genuinely, guys, to be honest with you, I think Oregon. I don't think Florida State's better than Oregon. I think Oregon could have go ahead of Florida State. And the good thing, when I would leave, this is my last point, for all the Florida State truthers out there, I should say, they get to play Georgia on the 30th. And I think they should have waited to talk after that game. If Georgia just boat races them, then it's going to make the committee's decision seem like it made a lot of sense. If Florida State is in that game, and even if they keep it competitive, maybe they barely lose, then I think it's going to cast a shadow on the committee's decision. But of course, as an Alabama fan here, I am not impartial.
Well, as I said, I had no problem with when Georgia beat Alabama. I had no problem putting Alabama as number 4. It was the Longhorns that was kind of
I feel like because the Longhorns beat Bama, and when the Longhorns went in, I think that was an indication that Bama was going to go in, to be honest with you, James.
Okay. Dave, what's your thoughts on the decision? Dave?
Man.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
There you go. There we go.
Yeah. No, I think that this gives a strong argument as to why they need to the expanded football playoff.
Yeah, we need the 12, man. We need the 12 for sure.
This
year we need it.
And here's the thing: is next year what's going to happen is there might be the 13th team that's let off, and they're going to say, well, hey, we beat this team, we should be in. But on the other hand, they're not even in the top 10, in terms of the ranking. So I think that kind of mitigates the issue. Right now, you got 4 teams, and arguably Texas beat Alabama, but then Alabama beat Georgia. And so, you could connect all the dots. But that's basically what was being done when they were depending on rankings to determine the national champion before they had the college football playoffs. So, I would feel bad if I'm a Florida State guy. Hey, we're undefeated. Yeah, we lost our quarterback, but it's like, well, that's part of football. How are they going to compensate for that in order to go on to compete? And hey, if in their next game, they may fall flat simply because, hey, they've been excluded from any chance of being the national champion. Whereas I would have liked to have seen them get a shot. But if you're only limiting it to 4 teams, the ACC, they do have a rep, I think, among the voters. I'm sure that they had some lively discussions, because I think the Power 5, each of them are represented by an athletic director, among the voters. And so really what it came down to is it's basically the same thing that used to take place when they were trying to determine national champions when you had 2 undefeated teams. And that's what it came to. So I'm glad that they're going to an expanded format next year. And then that should take care of this problem.
Good evening, Mr. Scott. Glad that you could join us.
Gentlemen, greetings.
We were just talking about the college football playoffs and the 4 teams that made it. Were you surprised that Florida State, being an undefeated team, was excluded?
Well, I think a lot of people were. I mean, if you're undefeated, what more can you do? You can't do any more than that. You're undefeated. And I went back and forth with my cousins down in Atlanta, because my mom went to the Great Parker High School in Birmingham, Alabama. So I'm an
Oh man.
Alabama man. And so, oh yeah, Georgia. He's gone to Morehouse. Oh, and he just, they talk different. To me, they didn't talk kind of. And I tried to tell him, I said, no, them Bama, these Bama boys, I mean, you look at the NFL, I think, was it last year or the year before, all the top receivers were from Alabama. I mean, almost all the top receivers are drafted high. Even reserves are drafted at Alabama. So, but I was surprised about an undefeated team not getting, so that just shows you that's analytics. There you go. There's analytics.
I see. You blame it on that analytics. The rest of us so far have been blaming it on politics. So, Bill, we'll give you the last word on this.
I'll say, wait. The rest of us except one. The rest of us except one blame it on politics. I still feel like we have merit.
Reggie, as I said, I had no problem with Alabama being number 4.
Yeah. I'm not so sure about the top receivers being from Alabama. I mean, there's some good receivers from Alabama, but the top receivers, I mean, last I checked, Devontae Adams with the Fresno State. Last I checked, Stephon Diggs with the Maryland. Last I checked, Cooper Kupp went to Eastern Washington. Last time I checked, Puka Nacua is probably going to win Rookie of the Year, or so has a good chance at it. Went to BYU. So I'm not sure about this whole Alabama thing. There are some good receivers from Alabama, but if you look at the top producing receivers in the NFL right now today, there's a couple of guys from Alabama, most of them from someplace else. Amon-Ra St. Brown went to USC last I checked. But, and of course, you should know Mr. Jordan Jefferson went to Louisiana State University. But he's hurt. But he was probably the top.
He'll be back this week.
Yeah, he will be back this week. But he was probably the best prior to the injury, and maybe once he gets back. To me, that was the best all-around receiver in football. But the fact is that we knew when they went to that room, the first thing they said is we have to have an SEC team, right? They always start with that. Yeah. Who's it going to be? And I'll be also honest. I watched Georgia all year long, and Georgia wasn't that good. They had a baby soft. I hear all this SEC schedule stuff. They had a baby soft schedule. The
Agreed.
Only somewhat challenging games they had were at home. What was their toughest road game all year? Was it Tennessee? Is that what it was? I mean,
37th strength of schedule for Georgia. 37th strength of schedule.
They played not very good.
It would be that game at Georgia Tech against 6-6. Georgia Tech running for over 200 yards on that Georgia defense.
Right.
They gave them a run, man. They challenged them out there.
So I think people are overrating the Georgia win. I mean, yes, Alabama beat Georgia, but Georgia wasn't that good. Like, nobody wants to say it out loud. It's like that emperor has no clothes thing. Georgia wasn't that good. I'm sorry. I know they just reload, whatever, but they lost a lot of talent, and they replaced some of those guys. They replaced all those guys. I saw that Georgia secondary. They're to this day trying to figure out where Jalen Burton's going. That is not, this Georgia defense is not last year's Georgia defense. Reload. Yeah, they reload. Like they had guys suit up at the same positions. They're not the same guys. They had a drop-off on defense that was significant and obvious. So I'm not as impressed as some people are by the Georgia win. Yes, beating Georgia anytime, any place is impressive, especially since, though it's a neutral site, it's in Atlanta. So it's, it's neutral only in the sense that, the kids don't literally roll out of bed, put on their slides and, walk onto the, into the lines to buy tickets as they can, at Athens. But I'm sorry. I know the SEC is, up on this pinnacle, this paragon, but I watch everybody. But the SEC, in many cases, twice. But the SEC, in terms of top to bottom, was the third best conference I watched, and I watched everybody. They have a couple of really good teams. Ole Miss, solid. I mean, obviously, you know, we just saw Alabama and Georgia. Mississippi State give you a good fight, you know, every now and again. Arkansas is, you know, physically tough at certain positions. I mean, Vanderbilt, you know, Kentucky, you know, not what they were last year, but, you know, they don't reload in Kentucky. They need a couple of years to get back up. They'd be back to being a 9-10 win school, you know, in a couple more years. I mean, remember all the hubbub about LSU? You talked about people that would get beaten. Oh, right. But LSU would get handled by Oregon. They would get handled by Washington. They would get handled by Florida State without Jordan Travis.
Wow.
They would. LSU's not terrible. They're not bad, but they're not that good either. They're a team that would probably, I mean, yeah, they would just run through some conferences, but not any of the Power Five. They wouldn't just run through the Pac-12. They would
Pac-12 is pretty good this year.
They would get dog walked by the top three in the Pac-12. They would get dog walked by at least the top two, maybe the top three in the Big 12.
Well, that's Bill. That's the beauty of the expanded format, because instead of saying they would do this, now you'll be able to see if they actually walk the talk, and that's the beauty of that expanded format.
Right, and that's right. It comes just in time, but not quite just in time. It comes a year too late. But
you're a year too late, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Jeffrey, we'll give you the last word on this topic before we start talking about a little NIL here.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it was disappointing to see, and when you have a player like Jordan Travis who's apologizing for getting injured at the wrong time,
right?
You know, that's what really struck me. That
rough.
That just kind of spoke to the whole system being broken, and like the other panelists have been saying, thank goodness we're expanding next year. It's going to be a lot easier to take when you're the 13th team left out of the playoff than a team that you could definitely make an argument should have been included. And the one other thing that never made sense to me about the committee is if you thought Florida State was so bad, why do you rank them 5th? Why aren't they 8th? You think that they're better than the team that lost by 3 points the week before that was a number 1 team in the country. Mm-hmm. There's just so many inconsistencies about how they made this. Mm-hmm. And Ohio State, they got them ranked ahead of Ohio State and Georgia. So you must on some level respect what they're doing. Just the whole thing is just so inconsistent. That was the most frustrating part, I would say. But we don't have to deal with it next year, thank goodness.
Yeah, you're right. We get to the expanded format. Jeffrey, there's been a new proposal here. The NCAA, AA is proposing a new college athletic subdivision rooted in direct athlete compensation. Members of the new subdivision will be permitted to strike NIL deals with their own athletes, a significant move away from the current structure. Jeffrey, what's your thoughts on this proposal?
I was reading through it. I think it was a good idea. That's like 4 years too late. And what I really think is, like, if you're at a school with a gigantic NIL collective, I mean, why would you even agree to this, to go under some constraints that the NCAA is doing? I mean, I kind of applaud them post Mark Emmert for actually trying something that, I mean, it made sense. It makes sense, but I think it's too late to really have teeth to it, because the schools with those gigantic NIL collectives, I mean, I can't see them wanting to agree into this, to saying, hey, we're going to take away what we've been doing with basically no rules and just putting out anything we want to do and going to follow your rules. If anything, it may give them an idea of how to, pull their 40 schools away from the NCAA and say, hey, that's a pretty good idea. We're going to just pull out and maybe adopt a couple of those ideas. So I think the ideas are in the right place, but they're too late. And I don't know how you put the what's the saying? How do you put the genie back in the bottle?
Genie back in the
Right.
bottle, toothpaste back in the
back in
tube.
the tube.
Yeah, put
right.
toothpaste
Right.
back in the tube. Exactly. I don't know how you could do that even with this proposal.
Yeah, this
Bill,
is like tightening up on the curfew at a school for unwed mothers.
Wow, I got to play the music on that one. Hold on.
Right past the 10 o'clock line. There it is. Right past the 10 o'clock line, my friend.
We got to play the music here.
Don't give a what that's in here. 'Cause I'm around, getting down, going hard, baby, we don't stop. Don't give
All right, Bill. Give us your take on this new NIL.
I mean, you kind of got it, but it's like, okay, but I mean, think about this. It's like they got all. It's like room springers arrived, and you take all of these like young, people who've never been off the farm, right? And hey, young Amish people, we're letting you off in Las Vegas. Oh wait, we have some rules. Oh, where'd they all go? Like it's too late. We just said this. So I get them wanting to lay down some structure and but I mean, what's the old saying? Oh, closing the barn door after the horse is left. I mean, there's all the terms you want to, all those old sayings, they all fit this. Now you want to do this, right? Now you want to put down the tarp. We already got paint all over your armoire. Like, it's over. It's done. Finito. Whatever. I mean, sure, whatever. Go have some fun, kids. But it's happening. It's happened. The thing has happened. The thing you're trying now to control has already happened. You can't Men in Black us and then go back. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are you even doing? It's adorable. It's adorable. What a sweet summer child they are.
Reggie.
It's my last one. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm going to say it's like trying to herd cats, man. I mean, there are things. It's like people have already said. You can argue this particular portion is 4 years late, but you can argue that NIL in general is 40 years late. Like it's things that people have already been doing. I mean, welcome to you acknowledging things that have kind of already been happening. And I don't really see. I mean, it's nice, like Bill said, it's nice, it's cool, but I don't see a meter being moved that was moved decades ago, seemingly already.
Wait, are you trying to tell us that LeBron James didn't earn that new car that he got going?
LeBron James, man, I think they gave him that Hummer, man. I'm just gonna come out here and say it, man. I'm just gonna come out here and say it. I know it's a mystery, but I think that yes, I think he was given the Hummer.
They gave him a what?
A Hummer.
Luckily, we already played the music, so it's okay, David.
It's Dave's not a basketball guy, so I don't expect you to know that. That's right on character, but actually, by the way,
yeah, Dave. LeBron had a Hummer as a senior in high school, but it's a mystery. He caddied at the Akron golf
municipal golf course, right? Yeah. He got some generous tips.
Right. Picked up a couple shifts, man. He worked for it.
Mr. Scott, you ever been given a little money under the table there? I mean, I'm talking about for sports now. We're talking that.
No, I don't subscribe to such nefarious activities. Actually, I think the whole proliferation of gambling and putting that into sports now, I think they better be real cool about this because, I mean, there's all kinds of nefarious slips and falls and misses from the basket that will become suspect because there's bets on these things. And so this whole open thing of betting, I think it's a bad thing. I don't see it being good in any way. That it's legal to bet on everywhere. No, I don't see
Yeah,
that.
you don't have to leave home. You can bet on your computer. On your you got a phone. You can make a bet.
I do it from my phone, guys. Don't worry.
See that? Just see. Uh, um, let's talk about the Heisman here for a quick minute. We had the Heisman finalists: Jalen Daniels, Marvin Harrison Jr., Bo Nix. Did I really say that? Bo Nix?
Man,
Anyway,
I crapped on Bo Nix at the very beginning of this season, and now here we are, guys. Here we are.
Michael Penix Jr. I thought it was a Geritol Award when I read Bo Nix, but that's a different subject. Anyway, so Reggie, who's your winner?
I like the kid Michael Penix, man. I've liked Michael Penix a lot. I've liked Washington all year, guys, to be honest with you. Now, I've liked Washington all year. And even with my own team, even me loving Bama, I didn't know that halfway during the season. I didn't think we deserved it halfway during the season. I thought we were a little suspect compared to other years past. You know, we've come on towards the last end of the season, but I think Washington has been consistently good to me. Like I've watched them play. Their games are entertaining to watch. And I like the kid Penix. It'd be interesting to see if Harrison Jr. would have a legit shot, being that he doesn't play the right position to have a legit shot. But I do like Michael Penix here, guys. I'm not sure if he's going to win it, but that's who I like.
Bill.
Well, first of all, and I love Marvin Harrison Jr. as a pro prospect. He's like maybe the third most deserving wide receiver, maybe third, fourth most deserving wide receiver.
Wow.
I mean,
he's not getting the award.
Not only not getting the award, but like, why is he there? Why is he there over Rome Odunze? Why is he there over Malik Neighbors? Like, help me. Help me
I like the
understand that.
yeah, for sure.
I mean, Malik Neighbors had a season that is ridiculous, and Rome Odunze is an unstoppable machine, and Marvin Harrison III is terrific. Don't get me wrong. I mean, all three of those guys are going to have long, successful NFL careers. But I'm trying to understand this trophy. Like, but at one point, I mean, there was lots of prejudices that went into it in the old days. But if you're a receiver who even was close to winning the Heisman, not only were you better than all the other receivers, but you did something crazy. You know what I mean? Like, not just normal crazy, but you had to like dominate. And then in a big game, everybody's watching, you also had like a return, a kickoff, or a punt, or both for a touchdown. So, strike the pose in the end zone, block a punt. Like, you had to do something way above and beyond. So it's a little weird to see him there. And yes, Bo Nix, I guess it's a lifetime achievement award because there's Bo Nix. And did he have a solid season? Yes, but
a lifetime achievement.
But I mean, obviously Jaden Daniels had a much better season, and obviously, I mean, I would give it to Michael Penix if it were up to me. But Jaden Daniels would probably be number 2 on my ballot. And then I would probably have somebody like, I don't know, maybe Malik Neighbors.
Wow.
I mean, I watched that kid a lot, man. And I know everyone's talking about Martin Harrison Jr., but I won't be shocked if a la Jordan Jefferson, remember that when people were like, oh, Jordan Jefferson, and then Jordan just ended up being way better than everybody else. I won't be shocked if it's the same thing with Malik Neighbors, where we talk about Marvin Harrison III, who ends up being a good pro, but Malik Neighbors is to be a better one. I won't be shocked at all. Xavier Leggett also, watch out for that kid. Good God. This is a really good wide receiver class. But I don't know. I mean, I get that it's a beauty pageant, and somebody mentioned figure skating, and I guess that's, sort of what's going on here. But Michael Penix did more, I won't say more or less. I mean, that's a good program. I mean, up in Washington, don't get me wrong, on both sides of the ball. But you saw what he did when their back was against the wall, right? When they were getting getting pushed around, getting beaten, partially just because he's such a mentally tough kid. Look what that kid went through at Indiana. 2 seasons ended via injury, fights his way through all that, transfers, has a really good year last year, and then this year, wow. So, I mean, I feel like it's Michael Penix's to lose. I keep hearing about Daniels, and he had a really good season.
Yeah, I heard Daniels is a good front runner. I hear
right, I keep
hearing
run
at it.
I keep hearing that, and it's like he had a really good year. Don't be wrong, but I mean, over Michael Penix because of what? Because of why? I mean, you have to help me with that one. And I like what he did. Like he deserves to be there in New York, but if he wins it, I'll be disappointed.
Mr. Scott, you got a horse in this race?
No, I really don't, because I'm not, college football to me now is just, this whole transfer portal thing, what these kids can move around. And, I understand the idea of being able to do it. But like here, Minnesota Gophers, we had a quarterback started every game this year, brought along last year. Now, because the coach recruits a high draft or a high rated quarterback in high school, oh, he's in the transfer portal now. Yeah. He's going to leave. He's upset. He don't like it. So to me, this is football, man. This is, he's the starter. How can somebody you don't even know, an unknown, beat you out? Come on, what kind of guy are you? And then he gets in the transfer portal and he can leave. So they can move around and leave. So I've kind of, I watched college, usually the Big Ten is really my only.
Dave, what's your thoughts here on this? And we're going to talk about the portal in a minute. So what's your thoughts on the Heisman?
I've been listening to everybody, and I'd have to go with Penix. I mean, does Washington get into the football playoff without Penix?
Absolutely not. Not in my opinion.
No, never.
And so I think that this guy, he had like a big. I think the first time they played Oregon, he had a big game. Also threw a touchdown against them. The next time, and hey, he's helping propel his team toward a championship. And like with Marvin Harrison, I would be more partial to him if he made some clutch catch against Michigan to defeat Michigan. Then all of a sudden, I would give Marvin Harrison, he would go up in my level. He didn't do that. So I would have to go with Penix.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how Jordan Travis didn't get there, because apparently he flipped the entire college football world by not playing a couple games. He might be the greatest player that ever lived in the history of college football.
He might be down the ballot somewhere down there. He'll get some votes.
No, of the finalists, I agree with everyone else. I think it's Michael Penix. He's, you wonder what Washington is without him in the Pac-12 this year, and that's an 8-4 team without Michael Penix. I mean, he elevates that team. They've been in some dire situations late in games in the fourth quarter, and he just seems to come up with timely throws, great plays. I mean, they just, you never feel like they're out of a game with him back there. And I know Jaden Daniels. He's had a great statistical season.
Yep.
But I mean, there's been a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of players that have had great statistical seasons. But are they the best player in college football? And who do I want? If we're doing the playoff committee analysis of who do I want quarterback in my team, it would be Michael Penix
for sure.
Mr. Scott mentioned the portal there, Jeffrey, and I thought that I'd just mention it real quick, because since the 26th of November, over 3,000 players have entered the portal.
Wow.
And Jeffrey, Mr. Scott mentioned one quarterback leaving. We've heard about other quarterbacks leaving. Why do you think we have so many quarterbacks in the portal, Jeffrey, even those in successful programs? What's the deal here?
I was listening to sports radio this morning, and they kind of asked the same question about so many players in the portal, and they didn't go with quarterbacks. But I mean, I think it's just it's like free agency with no rules. They put their name out into the portal and just see who is the highest bidder out there. And I really, quarterbacks, somebody made a comment. I don't remember. Maybe a coach, maybe it was Ohio State coach, I can't remember, but someone said that a quality quarterback is going to go for $1 to $2 million.
Yeah, I
And
heard that
and
same thing.
yeah, and I think that caught some of their attention, and they're like, well, let me just put my name out there and see what I can do. I really think that's all it's coming down to, is that these players are just putting their names out there and see what happens. And what's the real shame is, of all these players in the portal, like 80%, what was the number? Something like um 70-80% may not even have a home when it's all said and done, and it's, you know, or end up with a scholarship. So some of them are they're giving up scholarships, they're giving up starting positions, even some of them, and not ending up anywhere. And that's the real shame of it all. And we talked about the NIL stuff from the NCAA, and I mean, I don't know how they can ever go back. And I kind of feel like this is a kind of a sad direction of college football. And it's always been my favorite to watch, but I mean, I'm gradually just becoming more of a college basketball NFL fan over this. It's all of this together with the NIL and the transfers. It's kind of taken away the beauty of college football, of having players play on teams. And I mean, I don't have a problem with players transferring. That was something that they had to have, or for them to make money on their name, image, and likeness. But in its current format, it's just completely out of control.
Do you agree
I co-sign those remarks. Follow that cat.
Bill?
Yes.
Give us your quick take on this portal here. And like I said, what do you think about all these quarterbacks? And as Jeffrey said, some of them are giving up starting positions.
Sure. Well, the reason that you're seeing so many quarterbacks moving around is that you only play one quarterback at a time. That's the reason, right? You only play one quarterback at a time. If you could play more than one quarterback at a time, there'd be a lot less pressure. And one of the good things, though, if you're looking for sort of is that a lot of guys who would be declaring for the draft, a decent number of them are actually still in school. Cam Ward, prior to this, would have been in the NFL draft. Riley Leonard, in years prior, would have been in the NFL draft. There's at least probably 3 quarterbacks I can think of who are in the transfer portal who in prior years would have already been declared and been in the NFL draft. So some of these guys are going to spend more time in college. So if you do love college football still, you get to watch some of your favorite players a little longer than you would have in the past, though probably for different teams. And one way of selling yourself, because this was one of the big selling points for Russell Wilson, right, was that people, rightly or wrongly, didn't always take seriously what he did at NC State. But somehow magically, when he did what he did at Wisconsin, he became a more legitimate NFL prospect. You remember being someone who was a mid-day 3 prospect to a guy that ended up going in the 3rd round, picked 74 overall, and of course, very famously beats out the $25 million man, Matt Flynn, becomes a starting quarterback. So whether you dislike or like the transfer portal, what it's done is it's taken all the power that used to be held in the hands of conferences and collegiate administrators and everyone else and put it in the hands of the players. And I'm always going to side with the players, right? I'm always going to side with the players. I'm not going to side with a bunch of rich old dudes over the players. I will always say, if this is now, will the players make some bad decisions? Yes. Why? Because they're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds. Where a lot of bad decisions are made is in between the ages of 18 and 23. That's where some of our most spectacularly poor decisions we made in our entire lives, we made in that 5 or 6 year period. And yes, some of these guys will end up completely messing up the situation they were in, thinking there was greener grass over there, and it turns out it's just painted concrete. So you will see some guys get burned. But also, as you pointed out, the last how many Heisman Trophy winners have been transfer quarterbacks? Let me see. We know Baker Mayfield was. We know that obviously Kyler Murray was. In fact, same school. Caleb, right? Caleb transferred. I mean, so without the transfer portal, we don't have some of these guys winning the Heisman because they would have been stuck on the same team. I mean, as you pointed out, that Baker Mayfield starts his career at Texas Tech. Kyler Murray starts to career at Texas A&M. He and Kyle Allen are battling it out. Obviously, Caleb starts out at Oklahoma. Like, you wouldn't be able to have all these guys win Heismans. Joe Burrow would probably still be battling it out with somebody at Ohio State. Some of these guys, we wouldn't even know their names if we weren't the transfer portal because they would be third stringers or second stringers at another school. So while the transfer portal taketh away, it also giveth.
Okay. Dave, what's your thought?
Well, one of the things that Bill said that I think it's what it's all about with the quarterbacks is why sit behind somebody for 2 or 3 seasons,
right,
when I can just put my name out there and I might get $1 or $2 million, and plus get into a starting position. And why should I have to wait? And so I think that's why you're seeing so many, and just not quarterbacks, just so many players, period. But for the quarterbacks especially, that's they've been given an out, and yeah, it does displace the balance of power between the players. Didn't have much power at all in college football, and this has kind of swung the pendulum way over. But they better be careful because, like where Jeff is coming from, it's okay, starting to lose interest in college football. And so I think that's something that they need to pay attention to. I think that the players do need to be compensated. I mean, they're not, for the most part, they are not student athletes. They are athletes first and foremost, and then maybe there are some schools, but even in Division III, a friend of my wife's son, he went to little tiny Washington and Jefferson, which is a Division III school in southwestern Pennsylvania, where Roger Goodell actually went to school. That's where he got his bachelor's. Division III basketball, and then they were expecting him to show up 2 weeks before school started. He was going to miss his Thanksgiving. They were going to Las Vegas for some tournament over Christmas, and he said that he wasn't going anywhere. He was a good basketball player, but not that good. But that was at Division III. Mm-hmm. And so, you just imagine what's happening with these guys in Division I. Well, yeah, they should be compensated, but they need to be careful because the pendulum may have swung a little bit too far. We're kind of in the Wild West right now.
But in the case of that Minnesota quarterback, he started all year long. Mm-hmm. The year before, he started some, and he was really groomed to be the quarterback. He started all year long, and just because the coach signed another quarterback, he goes in. Mm-hmm. I mean, that just to me just seems, just because he signed some, I mean, don't you want your program to be better? Don't you? I mean, I don't know. It just leaves an imbalance to me when I see this.
But would he have made the money if he had stayed put?
Well, he probably would have made
money has entered into the equation.
The question: how much are you trying? What kind of bag are you trying to get? Is the question. As a starting quarterback at a Big Ten school, I would think you make some money in this current, setup.
Reggie, give us wrap this subject up for us here.
I'm gonna give you my thoughts on this, and I'll run through my final thoughts because I gotta get out of here. My thoughts on the transfer portal have been made clear on this show over and over again. The coaches' transfer portal has been open for eternity. When coaches can go out there and leave and go sit in somebody's living room and promise the world to a family and then be singing another school's fight song the next month because they paid him more money. Now, I never understood why the student athlete cannot go to another school or leave for a better opportunity. I do kind of co-sign some of what Jeff said in the sense that there needs to be guardrails. I mean, you can't just have no rules. Like, there needs to be something. There needs to be something out here like that can control these decisions. But from a transfer portal situation, I'm all for it. Like Bill said, I'm always for the athletes evening things up. here a little bit versus some of these athletic directors that have had more power than people that are actually playing the games on the field. So I really think that the transfer portal is something that'll work out. Final thoughts. I'll get to your Brett Rippon Falcons question. I'm not buying any more tickets because Brett Rippon's on my team. I'm not running down to Mercedes-Benz and running down to see him there. And also, final thoughts here with the FSU situation in the sense that I'm glad to get a chance to play Georgia because we're going to see. We're going to see. You were left out. You get a chance to go play Georgia, and then we're really going to see how bad this decision was by the committee. Guys, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on as usual. Great to see all you guys, and happy holidays. If I don't see you guys again here, I'll see you guys,
Take care,
James.
Reggie.
But if I don't see the whole body here, happy holidays to you guys.
Take care.
All right,
See you
Reggie.
later, guys.
Jeffrey, before we let you go, why don't you give us an early preview of your basketball season here? I keep hearing Duke. Disappointment or business as usual?
Oh, huge disappointment right now. They've already lost 3 times. They saw it in the opening game, their opening tough game against Arizona at home when they lost in Cameron. But they're not tough on the interior. They get beat on the glass. I mean, they're a very talented team, and they very well could be, an Elite 8 type caliber team by the end of the year, maybe even Final Four. But right now they look more like North Carolina did last year coming out of the gate than what many people expected. Duke, you lose at home to Arizona was a warning flag. Another warning flag, you lose at Arkansas, but fire alarms went off when you lost to Georgia Tech on Saturday, and you were beat on the inside by a fairly small Georgia Tech team. Great win for the Jackets. I was happy about that, but very concerning for Duke. Right now, probably the best, most consistent team in the ACC is Clemson. They got off to they're 8-0 right now. Won at Alabama, just beat South Carolina, who was undefeated. Between PJ Hall and the Syracuse transfer, Joe Girard, I mean, they got a pretty nice little inside-out combination going there, and Ian Shefflin on the inside, is kind of their blue-collar guy. They got Hunter at the point guard. They've got a really balanced team, and they got ranked this week. They're a legit top 25 team. North Carolina, I think, has a pretty high ceiling. They got wins over Tennessee and Arkansas, but you saw last night when they played UConn where they're a little bit lacking against the most elite teams in the country. I mean, they didn't really play that bad, and at no time did you really feel like they were going to beat UConn in the second half. And so, right now they look like a team that you might see in the Sweet 16, but they still got a little bit of a ways to go to be up there as a national championship contender. Other teams that have came out of the gate pretty well. Virginia, again, with Tony Bennett, that looks like a top 25 team. Miami is going to be pretty solid again. They only have the one loss, ugly loss, but it was at Kentucky. But that's also a team that you're going to hear from in the ACC. And Wake Forest, they're starting to get healthy. Knocked off Florida and Rutgers in their last 2 games. That's definitely a team to keep an eye on. So I think the ACC had a couple of lean years this past couple of years, especially in the non-conference. It's not vintage ACC, but it's definitely better. It's improved. It's deeper. I think it goes 6 or 7 teams deep that you could see in the NCAA tournament, and we'll wait and see if there's a team that you can really look at and say, that's a team that can win a national title. I think Duke is talented enough to it, but right now they got to get better on the inside. They got to be tougher. And then North Carolina hadn't quite hit that ceiling, but what they showed against Tennessee, the first 20 minutes of that game, they look like a team that as good as anyone in the country. They ran Tennessee off of the court for a half. So with them, I think they just need to build, consistency to be able to play at that kind of level, for the entire games. And then, like I said, Clemson's probably been the best, most consistent team coming out. So, I mean, think you'll see 6-7 ACC teams this year in the NCAA tournament, and it should be a good basketball season.
All right, Jeff. Well, hey, man, as always, great having you on the show. Thought you'd love to talk about that ACC decision there in Florida State. So we thank you and look forward to having you back there soon. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media. And as always, glad to have you on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you all having me, and love all the opinions from everyone for letting me share mine. Appreciate that. You can find me on Twitter at Talking ACC Sports. In spite of what happened, still got bowl games to go. We're gonna talk about that, and of course, college basketball. And you can find me blogging at allsportsdiscussion.com. As always, enjoy being on the show, guys.
Thank you so much, Jeff. See you later, man.
Take care, Jeff.
All right, guys. Well, let's talk a little NFL and some of what happened last week. Even though Reggie's gone, I'm still going to start with my man Ayahuasca here because he came out and actually defended Zach Wilson. Zach said that, well, there were rumors that, Zach might be a little defensive about getting back under center again. After the way that he was treated, not only by the opposition, but by the fans themselves. So Ayahuasca calls the leaks from the team chicken shit, but I mean, hasn't that been something that's kind of always followed him around, from Dana Kirkpatrick Dana Patrick to a lot of other family issues that he's had and so forth. And of course, now the ayahuasca thing. But Bill, what's your thoughts here on the Jets and them deciding to go back to Zach Wilson?
Well, panic is a funny thing because it comes from what should be a survival response that unfortunately gets perverted, right? And instead of enabling you to better survive, it ends up causing you to more likely perish. When you are deciding between Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian, you have locked yourself into a death spiral. The panic response has seized control of you so completely that you are sure to perish. While I have no particular love or interest in Zach Capono Wilson, right? He is half Native Hawaiian. So if ever, between Tua and if ever we see Mariota out there, we'll then have 2.5 Asian Pacific Islander quarterbacks in the NFL. But he is a young man who, if you saw him even at the NSL draft, right, looked like, oh man, like, wow, this is really happening. Like he was shocked, I think, by some of the other. I can't but remember. I remember Sauce Gardner had invested in some special grills for the draft. And at one point they were standing close to each other, like, photo ops, whatever, the red park target, whatever. And he had this look on his face like, oh my God. Oh my God. I guess he hadn't been so close to somebody with grills in before. It felt like the old church mouse, city mouse thing, right? So we saw sort of a similar thing happen to Carson Wentz, right? Where he seemed to be overwhelmed. I mean, no offense to Philadelphia, but thank God he didn't go to Los Angeles, right? Or New York. But he seemed overwhelmed by Philadelphia and how like big a city it was and how people acted and all that kind of stuff. Some guys, I think some people, sometimes we underestimate the human element of athletic performance. If he had ended up in Kansas City or it ended up in Indianapolis or Jacksonville, I think his journey might have been very different. But he went. I mean, it would have been worse if he went to Philadelphia, but he went to the Jets. And while Jets fans may not have the reputation of, say, once again, Eagles fans to keep picking on Philadelphia, that's still a fairly tough place to play football. There's a lot of attention on you. Everything you do, good, bad, or indifferent, is blown, frankly, a little bit out of proportion. He is a young quarterback who came from a system where they made certain things really easy for him, and they played a pretty soft schedule while he was at Brigham Young. Only twice in his entire career did he ever play against teams that did really anything in terms of post-snap movement. And if you saw the Coastal Carolina game just as I did, you saw what a bugaboo that was for him. Anything post-snap just threw him off tremendously. He put up ludicrous numbers because everybody else. But the two times that he ever had to face anybody that did post-snap movement, he was flummoxed. So he's got all that going on, along with the just being overwhelmed by the normal rookie quarterback stuff. And then, wait for it, as you're starting to get yourself established, get your feet wet in the league, the team that you play for trades for a future first ballot Hall of Famer quarterback. So imagine that you're just starting to maybe get your confidence back together after a very shaky rookie year. And then you hear, like, you pick up your phone, and it's like, what? Right? Even if you're the most confident cat in the world as a 22-year-old, you look down and you see that they're traded at your position for a future first ballot Hall of Famer. And he did all the right things and said all the right things and was a good soldier about it, blah, blah, blah. But you can't tell me that his little soul didn't die a little bit that day we looked down at his phone. You cannot tell me it didn't die. It didn't die a little bit. So he's a little broken. I think it would be fair to say. And then you add what's happened this year. It's one thing to be benched for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's Aaron Charles Rodgers, future first ballot Hall of Famer. If you get benched for Tim Boyle, if you get benched for Trevor Siemian, what are they trying to tell you? What are they trying to tell you about yourself? These are guys who in one case was a street free agent like 10 days ago, was, studying, I think, taking MBA classes, right? One guy I think was working on getting his MBA. When you're getting benched for a guy that was like working on a grad school degree just a few weeks ago, woo! I mean, I can't imagine that he isn't feeling very, very, very unsure of himself at this point forward. So even though I was a big doubter of his, I watched him a lot in college. And I thought people were overhyping him and way too high on him. And I said, this guy, one, shouldn't come out this year. He should go back to school. Two, if you do draft him, you should never draft him early. And both things happened. He came out early, got drafted too early, and then went to the one of the worst possible situations. And then basically it's been a comedy of errors from that point forward. I'm not at all surprised that he's going to struggle, because why wouldn't he? And you add to the fact it's not a great offensive scheme on top of it. Sean Payton may have been out of line for what he said about Mr. Hackett's offensive schemes, but he wasn't wrong. So, yeah, there it is in a nutshell.
What do you think about Zach Wilson and his confidence there, Mr. Scott?
Well, I think they shouldn't have signed Rodgers in the first place. I mean, I don't understand these dumb owners. They give these 40-year-old guys, they give Rodgers all this money, they give Mr. Massage all this money, who's clearly not nearly the quarterback he was. He sat out the whole last year. So, I mean, you draft a guy number one, you should stand behind him. I mean, I don't think they should have drafted him. I think they should have let that guy play and let him play through it. I mean, that you don't draft people number one to just, all of a sudden next year you're going to get a 40-year-old guy and give him the bank. To me, it's just a comedy of errors, and he's just in the middle of it. He's shown flashes when he's got in there. He's shown some flashes, but I don't think he's that. Ideally, he could have sat behind somebody for a year or two. Ideally, but as a number one pick, if you wanted to throw him in there, give him everything he needs to be successful, and that's. So to me, the team's a mess. The brain trust is a mess, and he's kind of caught up in that.
What do you think there, Dave?
Well, I just wonder whether, I think that Aaron Rodgers was defending him, and what he was calling chicken shit is whoever's leaking information from the Jets organization. And it's like, are the Jets purposefully undermining their own quarterback? And I just don't think it's a good look all the way around. I think that Aaron Rodgers would be willing to, or to me, is that they drafted this guy and they realized they made a mistake. And so then it's kind of like, okay, well, now we have to do something to take care of it. Well, let's bring in Aaron Rodgers under all this fanfare. Let's put him behind him for a year or two, because Aaron Rodgers clearly, he's toward the ends of his career. And then maybe it would work out for him. But I think that the way they've handled it is, it's just a recipe. How do you undermine the credibility and the confidence of a first round draft pick? And that's what's happened. And then he comes out looking bad, like, now, these reports of, well, he doesn't want to play. He's too afraid to play. Well, where's that coming from? Okay, so that's pretty low to be leaking that type of information. It's one thing if he came out and said it, which I can't imagine that. But for somebody to be leaking about that, and it's coming from his own organization, that's Bush League.
Yeah, but it seems to be more of the norm, especially this season, for us to have these teams leaking information about players and different information. But we'll see how it turns out. Dave, gonna kind of speed things up here. The Fins wide receiver Tyreek Hill has 2 TDs, and the Fins throttled the Commanders 45-18. The Fins are 9-3 for the first time since 2001. Dave, are you still doubting Tua?
Well, number one, the only thing I doubted about Tua was his health. Could he stay healthy? I don't think, in most of the conversations that we've had earlier in the season, that's what the conversation was about. I don't think anybody doubted his skill and abilities. And what's happened is he's managed to stay healthy. And I hope that continues that way, because he's putting on a show. And hey, can Tyreek Hill reach 2,000 receiving yards this year? Wouldn't that be crazy?
Well, we shall see. What do you have? Six catches, 134 yards, something like that. So, no, I think he was 8 of 12. I forget which one it was, but anyway, yeah. Like you said, he might get the 2,000 that he predicted. So we shall see. Bill, with a pair of field goals, the Chargers beat the Pats and quarterback Bailey Zappi. It was the third time in a row that the Pats had gave up 10 or fewer points and lost.
Yep.
They are the first team to do that since the 1938 Cardinals.
Yep.
See, I took that one from you. I know you knew that little fact, Bill. But what's your thoughts on? Do you still think that Belichick's going to be there next year?
Well, I mean, the reason that they are only giving up 10 or fewer points a game is Bill Belichick. Their roster is not that good. It's mostly the things he's coming up with schematically. Quick, who's their best pass rusher? Right? Quick, who's their best linebacker? Like, it's not talent. Once again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. The general manager, William Stephen Belichick, is about to get the coach Bill Belichick fired. They have still an excellent tactician and strategist at coach. The problem is, and I've kind of beat this point to the ground, is their talent evaluation and talent selection process has completely gotten stuck in the mud. They are very bad at it, worse than most teams in the NFL. And I know this won't make Mr. Scott happy, but they are behind the times in terms of their analytics department. They got late started on even working on analytics, and when they did, they focused it too narrowly, only on situational and not on longitudinal. So they're playing catch up in that area. They've lost a lot of their best talent in terms of talent evaluation, in terms of talent selection. I went through a list of people from Cesario to Osef to Cesario, Pioli, Dimitrov. Right, all these guys are either out of football or working other places. So there's 3 or 4 NFL GMs who used to be assistants, whether it be assistant pro player personnel guys or assistant directors of scouting at the collegiate or pro level, who have all left the Patriots and are now, in the case of Cesario, running the Texans. In the case of Osef, running the Arizona Cardinals. And so when these people leave, if you don't adequately replace, they don't find the same level of talent to replace them, you begin to draft worse and worse and worse. They are one of the consistently worst drafting teams in the NFL over the past 5 years, and that's caught up with them. The issue is talent. It's not coaching. The talent is bad. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, their best wide receiver is probably Demario Douglas, which I guess, to their credit, was a player they drafted in the 6th round. But if your best wide receiver is a 6th round rookie, what does that tell you? So they have lost the thread in terms of finding and developing talent. They haven't drafted another Willie McGinnis since the first Willie McGinnis they drafted. They haven't found another guy to replace the guys they had before. So they don't have the ability to win games against even average teams. They're able to make it close, make it competitive against better teams or even average teams only because of the coaching. So Belichick's coaching hasn't gone anywhere. It's still there and still working. But my God, they got to fix that roster. They are bad everywhere.
Mr. Scott, the Packers quarterback Jordan Love threw 3 touchdowns in a 27-19 win over the Chiefs. Do you think the Chiefs had put this in the win column and were looking ahead to this week's matchup with the Bills? And how do you grade Jordan Love's performance in this victory over the Chiefs?
Well, the Chiefs are not the Chiefs this year. The Chiefs are the Beyond Chiefs. Like the Beyond Meat, they're the Beyond Kansas City Chiefs. They just don't seem to really put teams away. They kind of wait around to the end and see if Mahomes can do, dipsy-do and get something going. But, I think the Packers are on the upswing. I think Love is looking good. I think, he's young, and that's what you got to do with these young quarterbacks. I think you got to let them stay out there. Give him this year. Let's do it. And he's making progress. And as long as he's making progress, that bodes well for the future, I think. He sat behind Rodgers for a while. I think he knows what he's doing, and he looks like he's a offensive threat. So, yeah, I was impressed by the Packers. The Central Division is going to be a fun ride coming up here. Yeah, I like them. But like I said, the Chiefs I call them the Beyond Chiefs, because they just don't seem to have that same spark that they had. They don't get knockouts anymore. They're just, trying to get decisions.
So are they Burger King, the Impossible, or Jack in the Box with the Beyond?
I don't know. I never tried it. I don't eat it.
You should try the Impossible from Burger King.
No, I don't eat it. No, I don't know what it is. I don't believe it.
I've tried it. It's not bad. It's not bad. I'm not saying that I'd eat it every day, but for a change, it's not that bad.
I won't eat it. No.
But then you won't listen to rap music either. So
no, I won't do that. Well, I do listen to it, James, and I'm going to just quickly on the rap music. I listen to it. I turn the hip hop station on, and my granddaughter is in the back seat, and we're riding to go get some ice cream or something, and Sit on my face. Give me the D. I'm like, what the heck is this? And she's just dancing and shit. No. No, I've had it with them. I'm through with them. No redeeming qualities whatsoever. So, no, but I don't want to talk about it. It's just about sports.
Oh, oh, you do my heart good, Mr. Scott. Dave, the Lions rookie tight end Sam Laporta, he had 9 catches on 9 targets, 140 yards, and a TD. Jared Goff was 16 out of 25, 213 yards, 2 TDs, and 33-28 victory over the Saints. How do you like the way this the Central Division? Well, it used to be the Central Division, but how do you like the way this division is kind of shaping up? Looks like Jordan Love is coming into his own, and everyone except for the Bears seem to be making progress. What's your thoughts on this division there, Dave?
Well, I mean, first of all, with the Lions, the important statistic with Jared Goff is he didn't throw an interception and he didn't fumble the ball away. And so I think that the Lions, as long as he can take care of the ball, I think that they're in the driver's seat. As for the rest of the division, well, the Bears are. I think it comes down to the Packers and the Vikings. Jordan Love is all of a sudden he's heating up, and let's see how these next couple games go. Because right now the Vikings and the Packers, they're going to be vying for a playoff spot. So I think right now the Vikings are currently the 6th seed, and the Green Bay Packers are the 7th seed if the season ended today. So they're very much both of those teams are very much in the hunt.
Bill, Colts quarterback Gardner Minshew throws a TD in overtime as the Colts win their 4th straight victory. The Colts wide receiver Pittman has 11 receptions on 16 targets, 105 yards, and a TD in their 31-28 victory over the Titans. Bill, have the Colts suddenly become the dark horses of this division?
Well, I mean, technically speaking, they're the white horses, but I think they're exactly what I thought they would be when I wrote. Actually, I've been covering the Colts all year for Team MES Media. I wrote a preview article, and I thought that with the exception of Jacksonville, they were the class of the AFC South, and they're going to give Jacksonville a run for their money. I think they lead the entire NFL in sacks. I have to go back and check, but I know they're up there. They have survived, not having Jonathan Taylor most of the season. And then as soon as he comes back, he gets hurt again. So it shows that they're not one-dimensional on offense. And in a way, it's almost sort of helped them because they've been forced to diversify what they do on offense. And Zach Moss, of course, has had a career year sort of stepping in as the primary back. But you've seen Michael Pittman Jr. establishing himself as that dominant X-type receiver. You've seen that in Josh Downs, he's establishing himself as that slot who works his way open and gets you those intermediate, works that intermediate area and gets you yards after catch once he has the ball in his hands. And then you have that true deep threat as the Speed Z and Alec Pierce, who got, in 6 targets and 3 receptions, got 100 yards and a touchdown. So and could have had 2 more. They just missed 2 other bombs to him in that same game. When he and Minshew get synced up, he's going to be one of the most dangerous deep threats in the whole league. So they have a lot of talent on offense, and they have some good players on defense. Obviously, DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. are probably the two of the bigger names. They've done a lot of this without Shaquille, formerly Darius Leonard, who unfortunately has himself been battling injury, and then Kenny Moore II, and a few other guys, are part of a solid but unspectacular defense that is consistently. I mean, they give up yards sometimes, but they don't give up a lot of big plays for the most part on defense. And like I said, they get consistent pressure on the quarterback. I think they're going to close out the year strong. They have a legitimate chance to secure one of those wild card spots. They have a couple of sort of landmine games to watch out for. And of course, the thing with Gardner Minshew is much like his sort of spiritual godfather, Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's capable of looking fantastic for a game or two or three sometimes even. And then at some point, there's sort of an implosion, and it sort of makes you, oh, that's right. That's why this guy's not a consistent NFL starter. But if he's able to avoid that, if he's able to avoid those games where he all of a sudden is just throwing the ball to the other team and taking bad sacks and, flushing outside the pocket and not securing the ball, getting the ball poked out and things like that. Those are things he's been prone to doing, is trying to do too much and then giving the ball to the other team. If he avoids doing that, the team on both offense and defense is good enough. They'll win, 8 out of every 12 games they play.
Okay. Dave, the Bucks wide receiver Mike Evans catches a 70-yard TD pass to have his 10th straight year surpassing 1,000 yards receiving. The Bucks beat the Panthers 21-18. Dave, do you think that Baker will be the Bucks starter next season?
Well, he's going to be a free agent, so I think that he's going to be shopping his wares. I mean, he's a guy that I think that Baker Mayfield really got mistreated by Cleveland. Here's a guy that played an entire season with a hurt shoulder that he could have just said, "Hey, I have to get surgery," and then they got the massage artist there, as Anthony refers to him, and just left him in the dirt. Now, he's not the greatest quarterback in the league, but I tell you what, I mean, he's very, very competitive. And we were talking about Zach Jones earlier. Well, I mean, Mayfield would flourish type of the situation. Bring in Aaron Rodgers, he would say, "Bring him on."
Zach Wilson.
Take him on.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson. Well, what I'm talking about is when the Jets brought in Aaron Rodgers with Zach Wilson, if Mayfield had been in Zach Wilson's, he would say, "Bring it on." He's a consummate competitor. So I think that he'll find a spot. Will he stay in Tampa Bay? Well, hey, he's going to see who's going to give him the most money.
Okay. Bill, the Texans wide receiver Nico Collins had the best game of his career.
Yes.
He caught 9 passes on 12 targets, 191 yards receiving, and a touchdown. Safety Jimmy Ward saved the game for the Texans with a timely interception of Russell. And the Texans beat the Broncos 22-17. Bill, pick your poison. You can talk about the Texans or the Broncos, or if you keep it short, you can talk both.
Well, the first thing I'll try to hit on, in that final play where, Jimmy Ward, who of course is the shorter player, made that play. If, and of course, Russ was under pressure. I mean, it was one of those last minute situations. He's, running around trying to create. But if he throws that ball, 10 inches higher, it's a touchdown and they win the game. So those games, those plays like that are always sort of, a few inches. We say it's a game of inches, but that was one of the situations where you could see it play out because he was on a tight end and a much taller player, and the tight end had his hands up here thinking that's where the ball is going to be, and Ward jumps up and puts his hands about here, right? About here, and that's where the ball ended up. So Ward was doing everything he could, but if that ball had been delivered where it should have been, would have been touchdown. But you got to see why it is the Texans are going to be real trouble next year, right? They're still another draft class away from being what this team will be. Boy, when they get this thing put together. And remember we just talked about why the Patriots in such trouble? Who's running the Texans? Nick Caserio, who for many years was Bill Belichick's right-hand man. And you can see now, I mean, no one person really runs a football team. But when you don't have the right people underneath you, working with you, feeding you information, there's no way a man who's in his 70s can get to every pro day, can get to every workout, can get to everything. He can't watch as much tape as he used to when he was 20, even 15 years younger. He just can't. And for him not, I hate to make this about the Patriots again, for him not to be willing to at least listen to, hey, Bill, let's just have you coach this thing and let's get you some help. I don't know, whatever. He's stubborn. But this is the Patriot way, right? The way they're building that team is the way the Patriots, the dynastic Patriots were built, because Nick Caserio was a young guy when 22 or so years ago, when they first were putting together that Patriots franchise that became that dynasty. A young Nick Caserio was one of those quote unquote slappies, as they called them, who was, making copies and getting coffee and picking up, people who were coming for tryouts and workouts and driving them to the facility and all that kind of stuff. And now he's worked his way up to where he's the guy in the big chair, and you see what he's doing with it, right? He is making all the right moves. They're being very effective in the draft. Look at the last 3 of their first round draft picks. Every single one of them is a star. Not good, not very good, a star. When he came in there at the beginning of 2021, he comes in, boom, right out of the box. They start drafting better, right? Immediately, they started drafting better. And while that's not the only way to put a team together, it's clearly the most cost-effective way to put a team together and the most sustainable way to put a team together. So, yes, the Texans, if they're a stock, you should buy that stock.
I hear you. Yes, and you're right. If you look back at those draft choices, you're definitely right. Mr. Scott, the Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott threw for 3 touchdowns as the Cowboys beat the Seahawks 41-35. But here's the thing, Mr. Scott. Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith he threw 41 passes. He hit 23 of them. He had 334 yards and 3 TDs. Seahawks wide receiver DK Metcalf he caught 6 of his 8 targets for 134 yards and 3 TDs. Mr. Scott, as you were talking about the impossible and the beyond, can this defense live up to its perceived reputation in Dallas? I mean, giving up 35, even though they won against the Seahawks, giving up 40 points at least once this season. What's your thoughts? Do we put too much stock in this defense, Mr. Scott?
I don't think so. I think it shows that Seattle is good. I mean, I think they have a good coach. And I think one of the things he's done with, Geno Smith, who's been around the league and never really got a shot, is he's like saying, you are our guy. There's nobody that we're waiting on. There's nobody hurt that's going to come back. You're the guy. And I think that makes a huge difference. I just think that was just a classic, one of those slugfest type of things that you'd see in a heavyweight fight. I mean, George Foreman used to be one of my neighbors. I mean, he would be in those kind of things, him and Ronnie Lyle, and so I just think it was one of those type of games. And no, I put a lot of stock in Dallas and Seattle because I think both of the teams have a good defense. It's one of these games that they just came right out and started hitting each other in the mouth, and it was just on. So no, I like both of these teams.
Okay. All right. Dave, uh, you might have second thoughts when the visiting team wears black to your stadium and says that they're attending a funeral. When Debo Samuel, talks trash before the game, uh, especially after that NFC game last year. So the 49ers plucked the Eagles' feathers 42-19. Dave, pick your poison. You want to talk about the Eagles? You want to talk about the 49ers? What stuck out to you in that game?
Well, I tell you what, the 49ers punched the Eagles in the mouth in their house. In their house. And not only that, you had the altercation on the sideline with Dom DiCardo, the Eagles head of security, and Dre Greenlaw. You know, they had their little didn't come down to fisticuffs, but you know, they had their thing, and we'll find out what kind of cash monies are going to be paid out, you know, in terms of the San Francisco player, but also what's going to happen with the Eagles head of security, what sanctions the NFL may bring, because he was ejected. He was kicked out of the stadium as well. But I got to say, you know, the 49ers, when I saw them at the beginning of the year, I thought that they were the team to beat. And then they kind of fell off. But now, you know, this was a big statement to come into Philadelphia and to beat them the way they did. And they've shown that, hey, they can be physical. That they can be just as physical as any other team, and they're good. Now the Eagles, I wouldn't count them out. I think that they're gonna bounce back, but I just don't think that they were expecting that kind of a show to be put on by the 49ers.
Okay. Mr. Scott, some called it an upset as the Bungles beat the Jaguars 34-31. The new kid, Bengals quarterback, Jake Browning, threw, he hit 32 of his 35 pass attempts. He had 354 yards to 9 different receivers and a TD. Mr. Scott, what were your thoughts on that Monday night game?
It was pretty entertaining. You know, I mean, there has been a lot of games where there hasn't been a whole lot of scoring. Whether any of these teams are going to go anywhere, I don't think so this year. I mean, I think that they're going to end up playing out the string. But and this Jake Browning, I wasn't familiar with him, but boy, what a big game that was. So, like I say, I can't see how either of these teams really go anywhere. Of course, now with the Steelers kind of tanking, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that. I'm sure there's some really, you know, people that are very upset about that. Me saying that even, you know, really wanted to throw back, but that's fine. So yeah, I don't think that there's that division. I really don't think that they're going to create much noise.
So, if the Steelers are tanking, what is the Vikings doing?
Well, Josh Dobbs is coming back. I'm sure we'll talk. I don't know. Did you even put the Vikings on your schedule? It seemed like you might have even ignored.
Well, the Vikings didn't play this week. They were on a bye.
Yeah, but they play this coming week.
Yeah, they play this. Don't worry. You'll see it when we get down in our predictions. It'll be down there.
Okay.
But they didn't play this week, so we didn't include them in highlights. But Bill, Rams quarterback Matt Stafford threw 3 TDs in the team's third straight win. The Von Clowns D loses to the Rams 36-19. Bill, do the Clowns have any identity as a team without Deshaun or Chubb?
Yes, and that identity is Kevin Stefanski. Not only does he have the best beard currently in the NFL, he is a very good play designer, play sequencing, play calling is not elite, but the play design is fantastic. You just go back and look at some of those like boot action and waggle stuff that they have off of all those stretch runs. Beautifully executed. Well, if it's executed beautifully, but if executed correctly, beautiful stuff. The blocking schemes, fantastic. A lot of even some of the things they're doing in the passing game. Look at what they were able to do with Joe Flacco, right? I mean, think about this. There was a touchdown scored by Jimmy Graham. Joe Flacco went out and slung the ball around, and Ezekiel Elliott's now one of the hot pickups in waiver week 14. What year is this? Who's president? But the fact is that Kevin Stefanski has done a very, very good job of making up for the fact they have not had great quarterback play. I mean, frankly, this is one of the best quarterback weeks they had. It was from a man that was literally playing with his children a week and a half ago. Yeah, I mean, they do indeed have and of course their real identity is that elite defense. They have one of the top 5 defenses. We're watching a truly special player. I think a future Hall of Famer in Myles Garrett. And they have several other good players on defense. And like I said, one truly transcendently great one. So that's running game and some beautifully designed play action passes off of that running game. And then a tremendous defense. That is their identity.
Okay. Dave, seems like Jimmy Connors likes the Steelers. He ran for two TDs against his old team. Kenny Pickett had surgery Monday, but now I hear the rumors that they're hoping that he'll be back for the Ravens game. But Trubisky has been named the starter for this week. And the prediction for that game is the lowest, I believe, since they have been keeping records here, Dave. So let's talk about that disappointing ass game, 27-10 at the Cardinals? The
24 to 10.
The Cardinals,
Yeah.
Dave, 24-10.
Yeah, and I think I sent you guys a link to my article with Steelers Depot entitled
Yes,
I
you
do
did.
the perspective of a Steelers fan, and I called that Cardinals humiliate Pittsburgh, because that's exactly what happened. And basically the beginning of the game started out okay, but I think what happened was Elandon Roberts knocked out Imari DeMarcado out of the game. And I think that early in the game, I think you could sense that Arizona was just looking for a reason just to mail it in. But when Elandon Roberts knocked him out, and it was an overthrown pass, I don't know if he could have held up. He was flagged on the play, but it was a James Harrison type hit. And I think that got Arizona's dander up. They were like, no, we're not going to be sitting here being fodder. And what they did is they started teeing off on the Steelers players. And the key change in that game, where the momentum change, was towards the end of the game, or the end of the first half. The Steelers had a 1st and goal. Kenny Pickett gets knocked out of the game where he tried to scramble, hurt his ankle. He's knocked out of the game. It's 4th and 1, and the Steelers' offensive line can't push. They don't even get across the goal line from the 1-yard line, the offensive line. And the Arizona they had their danger up. So now they get the ball back. Still no panic because they got it on the 1-yard line. Steelers had Minka Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. Hey, no problem. The second play of that drive, James Conner, who had been held to 11 yards up to that point, he ran 6 yards. And more importantly, Elandon Roberts was knocked out of the game on that play, trying to tackle him. And then the Cardinals continued to go down 99 yards for a touchdown. And they started hitting Trey McBride. Now, normally, if Elandon Roberts had been in the game, he probably would have been one of the guys tasked with covering Trey McBride. Instead, you had a practice squad guy, Michael Walker, that did have some veteran experience, but was a big downturn, and they just burned him. In the meantime, you had lightning come in. You had a suspension of play. It was the longest game ever in Pittsburgh history, not the longest in the NFL, but in Pittsburgh history. But everything that could go wrong went wrong. Chris Boswell missing a field goal. In terms of the coaching, they have to call a timeout because on offense they only have 10 players out on the field on the second down play. And so there was a miscommunication on the personnel package that they were sending in. And then the defense later on penalized for having 12 players on the field. They couldn't even get the right number of players on the field. And the Cardinals, I think, when they first came in there, I don't think that they were ready to, okay, we're going to play, we're probably going to lose, and that's it. But I think that they really, when their teammate got knocked out of that game, they said, yeah, well, then we're going to do it to you. And Connor, who had only 17 yards rushing in the first half, ended up with 105 yards by the end of that game. And they basically took the script that Pittsburgh had. Pittsburgh was going to try to use their running game against Arizona, who had a very weak run defense. And they were going to wear them out. And instead, in the second half, once they got that lead, then Arizona just used James Conner just to pound the rock down the throat of the Steelers defense. So, that's plain as day. I think it was the coaching was bad. If you can't get the right number of players out on the field multiple times, and the players, the execution was bad. I mean, the Steelers defense is supposed to be great. Giving up a 99-yard
Drive.
offensive drive, right up that took them to the end of the half. Just very, very poor performance.
Yes, it was very disappointing. Let's get to our predictions. All odds are always sourced by DraftKings Sportsbook. So we'll start with our Thursday night game tomorrow night on Prime. And it has the Patriots +6, getting 6 at the Steelers. And the over-under, as I said, is the lowest of all time, just 30. Dave.
Okay. I will point out that the Patriots could tie the Cardinals, the 1938 Cardinals, by having 4 games where they hold a team to 10 points or less and still lose. So I'm going to pick the Steelers to win, but I think it's going to actually be a little bit higher scoring game than that. I'm going to take the over in that game.
Okay. Bill.
So we were talking about sort of squeezing. There's means like some teams are built in such a way that, they just sort of roll over teams, right? They just have better players. And when you look at what certain teams are doing, we talked about the Texans. We talked about the Browns.
No, we're talking. Go ahead. Yeah, because we're talking. We need your prediction for the Pats and the Steelers.
Right. Well, and we talked about what Bill Belichick was attempting to do and, covering up certain things. I think that the defense will hold the line, hold it together for a little while, but they just can't do anything on offense. I think that at some point, probably, let's just say, the first possession of the third quarter, there's a mistake, interception, or maybe a strip sack in the pocket or whatever, and the Steelers get the ball back. in a short yard situation and pull away towards the end. The line on this game is how many points?
30.
Well, that's the over under. I mean, the line, the
And the
spread.
Patriots are getting 6.
Getting 6. As much as I hate to say this, especially with Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback, I think they still cover. I think they win and they cover.
Wow. I'm trying to figure out Dave's logic here. If the Patriots lose another game and the team scores 10 points, how can they go over 30? It's got to be the under there, Dave. It's got to be the under there. But anyway, go ahead, Mr. Scott. I know you've been waiting all day for this one. Come on.
This sucks. I mean, this is 30 points. I mean, that's just disrespectful. They even throw that out there as a number.
Well, I think it started out at like 28 and a half.
Yeah, it did.
You know, I just have to think there's got to be some life left in Belichick. I got to take the 6 points. I don't know what the weather's going to be like out there. I mean, I think this could be part of an issue, so that could make it really another slug, you know. But I just can't take I can't take no under when it's like that. I have to, so I'm taking New England and the over.
It's going to be in the 30s, and I'm going to be back out there. I'm a glutton for punishment.
Okay, let's talk about our Sunday morning games. I'm going to start with you here, Mr. Scott. We have the Lions giving the Bears 3, and the over-under is 40 and a half.
Boy, you know, the Bears beat us there. So I'd have to say they can beat the Lions there. The Lions have kind of been, pulling it out, going to the 12th round, trying to just show the refs a lot of activity and getting a win. And it's the Lions. I'm going to take the Bears and the over.
Okay. Staying with you, Mr. Scott, the Rams getting 7 from the Ratbirds, and the over-under is 40.
Oh, yeah, I'm strictly going with Baltimore and the over. I think they're going to score points, and I think Baltimore's at home, and I think they're the better team. Even though the Rams, they seem to be kind of getting it together. They have a very good quarterback, good offense, but I'm going to take Baltimore, the over.
All right. Bill, you can start with the Rams, +7 against the Ratbirds. Over-under is 40. I still got Bill? Maybe not.
You just still have Bill. You still have Bill.
Okay. So we're talking about the Rams +7 playing the Ratbirds, and the over-under is 40.
Oh, yeah, that number's about right. Once again, that's why they have so many palatial buildings to put these apartments and entertainment venue. I think that the 35 is very doable. And what was
40.
the second half of it?
It's 40.
No, I mean the
Rams are getting 7.
Right. But they're getting 7. You said getting 7?
Yes.
Huh. Yeah. Well, once again, I'm reaffirming that I would definitely take a couple of the players there off of their offense. And then for defense, I think they have enough. I think they have enough to eke out a victory. And you said the line is 7. That's tough.
The Lions are getting 3. The Lions are giving 3 to the Bears, and the over-under is 40 and a half.
Right. Got it. Well, like I said, I will stick with the pick I made earlier. I think it's been kind of around a push. I mean, 7's just about right. And but I can't see them not taking advantage of this vulnerability there.
So are you taking the Lions are getting 3, playing the Bears. Are you taking the Lions or the Bears?
I'm taking the Lions.
Okay. Ooh, in direct deference to Mr. Scott there. Okay. Dave, Lions -3 at the Bears. Over under is 40.5.
Well, I was kind of talking up Jared Goff, and if he continues not throwing interceptions and avoids fumbling the ball away, I'm taking the Lions in the over in that game.
Okay, the Rams getting 7 from the Ratbirds. Over under is 40.
I'm going to go with the Ravens because I think with the Rams in that Rams Browns game, I don't think that the quarterbacks are being pressured that much. And from the what I was saying, Joe Flacco, I mean he was back there just standing and having target practice. So, and the Ravens are a tough defense. So I'm going to take the Ravens in that game, but I'm going to take the over.
Okay. Staying with you, Dave. The Texans are giving 5.5 to the Jets, and the over/under is 33.
The Texans have been playing with a lot of swagger, and then that CJ's excuse me. So I'm going to take the Texans in the under, but CJ Stroud, they've rallied around that quarterback. So Texans in the under.
The Panthers getting 5 at the Saints. Over/under is 37.5.
I'm going to go with the Saints and the under again.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Bill.
Yep.
We're going with the where am I? The Rams. Excuse me. The Texans giving 5.5 to the Jets, and the over/under is 33.
And you said the over/under is 40.
No, the over/under is 33.
Woo! We got
You
some
won't hear
crazy
40
low
for a
ones.
while.
Got some crazy low ones. And the point spread is how many?
Texans are giving 5.5.
Really? Huh. And it's being played in
New York.
New York. I think the game goes over, and I think that Houston wins it, but they don't cover.
Okay. The Panthers getting 5 from the Saints, and the over/under is 37.5.
I think that. Yeah, I'll take the over. And you said the Texans are giving.
No, the Saints are getting 5.
The Saints are getting 5. Yeah, I'll take the Texans.
Excuse me, the Panthers are getting 5 versus the Saints.
I think the Panthers make it tough for a while, but I think the Saints pull away in the end and win by, I think, at least 10 points. Probably is about right. So I'll take the Saints and I'll take the over.
Okay. Mr. Scott, Texans giving the Jets 5.5. Over/under is 33.
Yeah, I like the Texans. And as we were saying earlier, the CJ Stroud, their outfit, the receiver looks really good. So I will take them. And 33, I got to go over. I can't go under 33. It just against my religion.
Okay. The Panthers getting 5 from the Saints. The over/under is 37.5.
Boy, I think I would. Boy, I think I'll take the Saints. Those Southern teams have kind of a rivalry down there. And I'll take the over.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, the Colts +1 playing at the Bengals, Mr. Scott, and the over/under is 40.
I'm just gonna
Plus,
take.
plus or minus 1. Either way you want to go.
I'm just gonna take Cincinnati because they're at home. I think that's enough for them to pull it out. And I over. I go. I mean, I love the overs. So, and these are low numbers, and I just kind of just love to see those. So I'm gonna go with the over.
You'll love this week because there is not that many high numbers in here. Let's see. What was the other one here? The Jaguars getting 3 at the Clowns, and the over/under is 30.5. As I said, you'll love these numbers.
So is Flacco still going to be the quarterback? I haven't heard.
So far, Flacco is going to be the quarterback.
Gosh, and as Dave said, I love Stefanski. I mean, I just think I wish he was our coach here. I really do. He was here a long time as an intern, moved up as a defensive coach. He's Jaguars can score. I just don't know what kind of quarterback. Man, that one is really. I'm gonna go with the home. I'm gonna take the Browns, and I gotta take the over 30.5. That's just too enticing.
Dave, Jaguars getting 3 from the Clowns. Over/under is 30.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna. First of all, I'm gonna take the over in that game, but I think that the Jaguars are going to put more pressure on Joe Flacco, and so I'm going to take the Jaguars because I'm not so sure that Flacco is going to be as effective if he has to move. If he's able to stand back there, then the Browns are going to win. But I think the Jags are going to put some pressure on them, so I'm going to take the Jags in the over.
And what about the Colts? Plus or minus 1 at the Bengals. Over/under is 40.
Okay, that's another game that really key game for the AFC wildcard standings. Colts have won 4 games in a row.
Yes, sir.
But the combined record of those 4 teams, 12-35. On the other hand, the Bengals don't have Joe Burrow, but then this Browning put on a light show. So the Colts, their next 2 games, they're playing the Bengals and then the Steelers. We'll see if those 4 games were a mirage because they had week 4 games. But I'm going to take the Bengals and the over.
All right, Bill, you still with me?
Right here.
All right, we got the Colts +1 against the Bengals. The over/under is 40.
The Colts are giving the 1, and I think they will pull out a victory. I think that a lot of people are excited about what Browning's shown, and what he did shouldn't be surprised. He's a guy that set all the records, right? I mean, 123 passing touchdowns in high school, just ludicrous numbers, right? And then set all the records at Washington, right? Rewrote the record, but he was at Washington. He doesn't have a big arm, but he makes decisions very quickly. He has natural accuracy. A lot of the things that allow – I'm not comparing him to a guy like Joe Montana, but a lot of things that allowed a person like Joe Montana to be successful, despite not being big, the biggest, strongest, fastest, he has some of those same things, though obviously not to the extent that Montana had them. And they'll make it, once again, a very close, tightly fought game. I think eventually just the team that just, once again, built the better roster will prevail. Even with Joe Burrow, I think they might have well beaten the Bengals. And obviously without Joe Burrow, that just makes it that much easier. So, yeah. And the over-under was what again?
40.
Yeah, give me the over and give me the Lions.
Okay. The Jaguars are getting 3 from the Clowns, and the over-under is 30.5.
So you said the spread was
3. The Jaguars are getting 3.
3, and
They're
the over
playing
under
at
was.
they're playing at the Clowns, and the over-under is 30.5.
Well, it looks like both teams will be missing their starting quarterback, so that evens the playing field. Now it comes down to, defense and running game, and I will give the Browns the edge because of the better defense and the slightly, even without Chubb, a slightly better running game.
Okay. The Bucks are getting 2.5 against the Falcons, Bill, and the over/under is 39
And this is being played
at the Falcons.
at the Falcons. So being played at the Falcons. You said the spread's 3? No,
2.5.
2.5. 2.5. Okay, not quite 3. And the over/under was
39.
wow, so many low ones. I'm going to say yes to the over. And the Falcons are giving 2. You said
2.5.
2.5, right? 2.5. Can the over? Yeah, I'll take the Falcons. I'll take the over.
Okay. The Seahawks are getting 10.5 against the 49ers, and the over/under is 47.
I will take the under in this case, and I will take the Seahawks. I think the 49ers win, but I think the Seahawks make it closer than 10.5.
Mr. Scott, the Bucks plus 2.5 over the Falcons, and the over/under is 39.
Yeah, boy, when it's like that, you want to go with the home, but I'm going to take the Bucks on this one and the under.
Okay. The Seahawks getting 10.5 from the 49ers, and the over/under is
Ooh.
47. Remember the score of the Cowboys game.
Oh, boy, 10.5. The Seahawks are a good team. I'm going to take the 10.5 points, and then I'll take the game under.
Oh, okay. Dave.
All right. Which one do you want me to do
Bucks,
first?
the Bucks getting 2.5 against the Falcons, over/under 39.
I'll take the Bucks in the under.
Seahawks getting 10.5 against the 49ers, over/under is 47.
I think the 49ers are going to win, but I'm going to take the Seahawks in the 10.5 points, and I'll take the over in that game.
Oh, okay. Mr. Scott, your Vikings giving 3 to the Raiders at the Raiders, and the over/under is 40.
Well, I want y'all to know Mr. Dobbs will be back. He will
Yes,
be starting. He will be starting that game. There's been such
and
consternation around
Jefferson's
here.
supposed to be back also, isn't he?
Jefferson is supposed to be back also, and there's been such, consternation. See, we told you Dobbs. He is what we said he was. He's been bounced around to 7 teams. He's been blah blah blah. Yeah, but he won 2 games. He came right in and got the job done. So they're going to go with Dobbs another week. So I'm taking the Vikings. And I'm not even sure who the Vegas quarterback is going to be.
Aiden O'Connell.
I want to take the Vikings and the 40. I'll take the over. With Jefferson back, he'll probably want to get a couple of touchdowns. So, yeah, I'll take the Vikings. And I'm not a homer. I mean, I just think they're the better team this week in the over.
Well, I'm going to see if you're a homer or whether you're true to your word here, because we had the Bills getting 2.5 from what you call the impossible Chiefs, and the over/under is 40.
Well, this is a good game because it's the impossible Chiefs against the impossible Bills, because these Bills have not been the Bills that I expected them to be. I don't know what is going on with them. It's just kind of a schizophrenic type of a deal with them. I don't get it. I expected a lot more things out of them, but I think the Chiefs are. I believe they still have it in them if they're healthy, and I'm going to take the Chiefs in the over.
47.5. Okay, all right. High scoring game there. Bill, um, the Vikings giving the Raiders 3, and the over/under is 40.
I will take the over, and I think the Vikings can cover the 3.
Okay. The Bills getting 2.5. Playing the Chiefs at the Chiefs, and the over/under is 47.5.
I think this is a bit of a get right game for the Chiefs. I think that a lot of the things that we saw didn't quite go right for them will start to lock into place. The Bills, particularly on defense, have been uncharacteristically generous this year. And of course, they've had a lot of turnovers on offense. I think that trend will continue. I think the Chiefs get at least 2 turnovers, and I think they get at least 4 sacks. And they come out of there with victory and the cover.
Okay.
And the over-under was what again?
47.5.
Probably right about on it, too. As much as I don't like it, I will take the over.
Dave, Vikings Raiders, over/under 40. Vikings giving 3.
Well, Anthony gave a very convincing argument, so I'm going to take the Vikings in the over.
Okay. Let's see. The Bills getting 2.5 against the Chiefs, over/under 47.5.
And
Chiefs are at
40
home. I'm going to take the Chiefs and the under in this game.
Okay. Bill, let's knock off these last 3 and then get your final thoughts. The Broncos getting 2.5 against the Chargers. The over/under is 44.
And in a minor upset, I think the Chargers win, and I'll take the under.
Okay. Let's see. Sunday Night Football, the game of the week. Bill, the Eagles getting 3.5 at the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And the over/under is 53.
I think that the game goes under 53. I think it'll be a fairly high scoring game, but not quite that high scoring. I think it'll take about probably 30 points to win. I think it's like 30-24. No, that is. Wait, hold on.
That is 54.
That's 54. Okay. I mean, maybe I will take the over then. Okay. I guess now that I've run the numbers, I guess maybe I'll take the over. And I do think the Eagles will, first of all, not be beaten by 3.5 by the Cowboys. So yeah, the Eagles I think come out here, maybe even will win straight up. And yeah. So yeah, I'll take Eagles, and I guess I'll take the over.
Okay, Monday Night Football, Bill, the Titans getting 13 against the Fins, and the over/under is 47.5.
I'll take the over, and I will say that the Titans managed to lose by only 11 points. So it's not a cover. They bravely stave off defeat, at least against the spread. And yeah, that's what I'll say.
Okay. Your final thoughts, Bill?
Hey, James, you got
Yes.
one more game. Isn't there Packers Giants Monday night?
There is, isn't there?
Oh yeah.
Two
The
Monday night
Packers.
games, right?
That's right. I forgot there's 2 games on Monday night. One
Yeah,
is
you
on
did.
ESPN and the other's on ABC. So
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully you have split screen or 2 TVs. Yeah, Bill, the Packers are giving the Giants 6.5, and the over/under is 37.
I think the Packers will manage to cover the 6.5, and the over/under we said was how many again?
37.
And I'll take the over. I'll take the over, and I'll take the Packers. On this day in 1961, the 27th Heisman Trophy award was won by Ernie Davis, who became the first African American to win the award, though obviously Jim Brown should have won it before, but that's neither here nor there. But when Ernie Davis won it, in addition to breaking through that racial barrier, he also became a beloved figure, not only throughout the history of Syracuse football, but American society, Big Spread in Life magazine, etc. And unfortunately, as we all know, Ernie Davis never was able to fulfill all that promise. He died very, very young of leukemia. He was a very special young man. And everyone I've ever spoken with who had even the briefest contact with him raved about what a special person he was. It is unfortunate that we'll never know what might have been. He's on that all sort of what might have been team, that I sort of put together in my mind with people like Joe Don Looney and, Dwayne Thomas and, Greg Cook, and so many others who, for whatever reason, Joe Cribbs, Joe Delaney, and others who had their careers, cut short. Al Blosis, right? Who set what was, if sacks had been a record, set the sack record that would have stood for decades, and died during World War II. But yes, Ernie Davis lives on in the hearts of all those who knew him, all those who saw him play, and even some who were not so lucky, who do have a strong connection to the history of the game. So once again, on this day in 1961, Ernie Davis was the first African American and the 27th winner of the Heisman Trophy.
Oh, I forgot he was the first. That was very interesting. Even thinking of what year was that, Bill?
1961.
Okay. Mr. Scott.
Actually, he was involved in the Washington Redskins being the last NFL team to integrate.
Correct. Yeah.
He was involved in that trade that they were probably
sent Bob Mitchell, right? Yeah.
Mr. Scott, let's see. We had these last 4 here. The Broncos getting 2.5 at the Chargers. The over/under is 44.
Well, I was trying to get back on the Russell Wilson thing, but I maybe he has enough left. The Chargers, I don't know where they're going. I don't. So I'll take the Broncos, the cover, and I'll take it over.
Okay. The Eagles getting 3.5 from the Cowboys, and the over/under is 53.
Boy, after I saw the Eagles last week against the 49ers, this is a good test here. Can they bounce back? I don't think so. I'm going to take the Cowboys at home, which they've, just scored knockouts at home.
14 straight.
So I've got to take that. And then the 53. Boy. I'll go the over with that.
Okay, Monday night, the Titans plus 13 against the Fins, and the over/under is 47.5.
Yeah, I'm through with the Titans. Through with the Titans. So I'm taking Miami and the Miami over, even though I'm not sure the Titans can really score that much, but I'm gonna go with Miami. I mean, because
Miami might
that
score
Tyreek
48
Hill,
by themselves.
when my brother and I used to sit and watch football with Randy Moss and Barry Sanders, we would call him a funk attack. That's the funk attack, and that's what Hill is. I mean, he gets you'll never catch him, So yeah, I like Miami to score.
Okay, and the Packers giving 6.5 to the Giants, and the over/under is 37.
Oh, I think the Packers will win. I don't know if they'll win by that. I mean, they're coming on, but I'll take the Packers to cover and under.
Okay. Your final thoughts, Mr. Scott. Always glad having you around, and we appreciate your thoughts, sticking around with us and taking the predictions. Uh, have you kept track of your predictions, Mr. Scott? You seem to have been pretty close there. I know Dave keeps track of his pretty close. Dave, where are you at?
Well, last week I was 7-4-1 on the picks and 7-5 on the over and unders.
Oh, okay. Mr. Scott, how you doing?
Yeah, I haven't really collected, but I did win some on one of my boards. I had several boards. I haven't really checked them out yet. But as far as the final thing, for some reason, I was thinking and talking to my brother and another buddy about the old Minnesota Gophers. And when we were coming up, see, as 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 9-year-olds, there wasn't no Vikings. There wasn't no Twins. There wasn't no professional sports. It was just University of Minnesota. And so the Gophers actually went to the Rose Bowl, I think, a couple times in 60 and 61, and they had a black quarterback, Sandy
Stevens. Yeah.
Sandy Stevens at Unitime of Pennsylvania. And what had really happened is the Gophers had brought up a coach from Mississippi, Murray Warmath. And so the first couple of years he did well, but then he lost. He had 2 years where he only won one game. So it got so bad they were hanging him in effigy and on the college campuses. It was so bad. So what he does now, he's from the South. He's from Mississippi. He goes down and gets Carl Eller, Bobby Bell, Aaron Brown, Sandy Stevens, Bill Muncie, Judge Dixon, and they go to the Rose Bowl twice. And Sandy Stevens, and I never really thought, because when I played football in sports, I played quarterback. Some of my buddies, we had quarterback. I never thought about not playing quarterback. And but I was down in Houston at a meeting, and all the guys were talking about, oh, you're from Minnesota? Man, I can't remember when Sandy Stevens won at the Rose Bowl, and what a big thing that was. And I didn't even realize that. I did not even realize. Was just something we watched. Matter of fact, I knew Sandy. He married a girl from here. First of all, he married a girl. I don't know how long they stayed married. But I just was thinking about those, old Gopher days and those days of sports here before they were professional.
Yeah, we a lot of us remember those old glory days. Like you said before, there was some professional sports in some of our towns. Great final thought there, Dave. Let's get your last four picks and your final thoughts here. So starting with the Broncos, 2.5 over the Chargers, over under 44.
I'm going to go with the Broncos and the under in that game.
Okay. Sunday night, Eagles getting 3.5 against the Cowboys, over under 53.
Wow. Eagles 2 Sunday nights in a row. The Cowboys have the number 1 offense, and now that number 1 offense is going to play the number 4 defense in Philadelphia, the number 5 defense in Buffalo. Oh, no, excuse me. They have the number 1. They have a tough defense. You're playing the number 4 offense in the Eagles, the number 5 offense in the Bills, and the number 2 offense in the Dolphins. And so I think that Dallas defense is going to be tested. But I'm going to take the Cowboys at home and the under in that game.
Okay, Monday night, Titans getting 13 against the Fins. Over under is 47.5.
Okay, well, we were talking about Tua earlier. There's been 6 starting quarterbacks knocked out for the season, and a total of 67 quarterbacks that have thrown at least 1 pass this year. And 2 is healthy, so I'm going with the Dolphins and the under.
Packers giving 6.5 to the Giants. Over under is 37.
Well, as of right now, there's only one team that's been eliminated from mathematically eliminated, and that's the Panthers. These next coming weeks, we're going to see a number of other teams go out, and I think that the Giants are going to be one of them. I'm going to go with the Packers and the over, because pretty soon now teams are going to be focused on staying in the playoffs, but then there's going to be another segment that are going to be in the draft pick sweepstakes. So I'll take the Packers and the over.
Okay, and final thoughts for the evening. Take us home.
Yeah, well, I guess, this involves, I saw that humiliating loss that Pittsburgh had, and the bottom line, the Steelers can't afford to panic. Right now, the coaching staff and the players, they had a walkthrough yesterday, 1 practice today. They've lost their starting quarterback. They've lost their defensive signal caller, and now they got to play the Patriots. Now, the Pittsburgh fans will do plenty of panicking for the Steelers. And it was just a few weeks ago, the Steelers beat Baltimore, and the Baltimore fans were calling for John Harbaugh to be fired. They wanted him fired just a few weeks ago. Now the Ravens are currently the number 2 seed in the playoff picture in the AFC. So I think that they've quieted it down a little bit. So the Pittsburgh, they have to win this game in order to stay viable. They're currently the number 5th seed. But I guess, now everybody wants to fire Mike Tomlin. They're talking about trading him for Eric Bieniemy and draft picks with Washington. And I think what's happened is, like, every fan all of a sudden, maybe it's because of fantasy football or Madden, but everybody's a general manager all of a sudden. And they're already talking trades that can happen, in terms of players. So they want to get rid of Deontay Johnson and Kenny Pickett that is no good. And I would just encourage people, as long as your team is alive, there's a chance. Have hope. Have faith. Faith is the belief in the absence of proof. And as a fan, if you're a true fan of your team, have faith in your team. I think positive energy goes a lot more in helping a team succeed than directing negative energy toward them. So that's my final thought. It's kind of like, hey, live in the moment, enjoy the moment, as long as your team still has a viable shot, and don't give up on them so easily. And Baltimore is a perfect proof. A couple weeks ago, hey, fire the guy. Now they're the number 2 seed. So I'm going to be cheering for the Steelers tomorrow night, and I always stay to the final whistle, regardless of the score.
You might have to get some Bronco fans and send them that spiel there, Dave. Yeah.
Well, I think it goes. It's just not Pittsburgh fans. I think it's across in football, at least. It's across all the fan bases. You know, they panic, like, you know, it's like, hey, you guys are still in the playoff picture.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you see some points tomorrow. Maybe a touchdown or two, maybe.
Well, you know what? I'll take a safety as my only points as long as the Patriots don't score any. I'd rather win 2-0
That's
than lose
plausible.
45-42.
Right. All right, guys. Well, hey, as usual, great show. Love having everybody around. Mr. Scott, you've become a regular again. We're seeing you very. I think you're trying to set up a trap for Demetrius. But sooner or later, I'm sure.
Oh no, they're wonderful. Great Demetrius. What a great patriot. I mean, Demetrius, he's wonderful.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to everybody next week.
Take care.
Yep. Take care. See you next week, everybody.